Chapter 419. Soli could not help but take a few steps back when she sensed a power from immeasurable Star-Lord that gave her a heavy sense of pressure. The two of them met at the gate of the academy. Soli retreated behind the gate and completely entered the academy. Suddenly, immeasurable Star-Lord shouted coldly, "Come out!" Without seeing him do anything, Soli felt that she could not move at all and flew toward immeasurable Star-Lord. At this moment, boom! A loud sound rang out, shaking Soli so much that she felt dizzy and did not know what had happened for a moment. After this deafening sound, Soli quickly found that she had regained her ability to move and her feet were on the ground. Her body swayed, and after her mind cleared, Soli found that Professor Shinwu had appeared beside her. At this moment Professor Shinwu shook his hand and frowned, "Immeasurable Star-Lord, you've broken the Academy's rules." Hearing Professor Shinwu say this, Soli knew that the middle-aged man in front of her was Immeasurable Star-Lord. Soli had heard of Immeasurable Star-Lord from Yang Tian and knew that he was the father of the current goddess of Super Star God Temple. After knowing Immeasurable Star-Lord's identity, Soli understood why Immeasurable Star-Lord had called her out for a meeting. He must have wanted to know about Yang Tian. Although she did not see the situation clearly just now, Soli knew that Professor Shinwu and Immeasurable Star-Lord had exchanged a blow. That loud sound was produced when the power of the two collided. However, the strange thing was that there was only a sound and no strong shockwaves. It seemed that Professor Shinwu had suffered a loss between the two. Even now, Professor Shinwu's hand behind his back was trembling from time to time. Immeasurable Star-Lord's strength shocked Soli. She was an eternal star realm cultivator. Even a superstar realm expert could not make her motionless, right? Above the superstar realm was the Great Star Lord realm, and above that was the Great Star God realm. The name Immeasurable Star-Lord, coupled with his strength, made it easy for people to guess that he was a Great Star Lord. Soli, who was still in the star state, couldn't imagine what it was like to be a Star Lord. As soon as Professor Shinwu finished speaking, Immeasurable Star-Lord's originally stern face was suddenly filled with a smile. "Sorry, I was a bit impatient just now." Seeing that the Immeasurable Star-Lord's attitude had softened, the Divine Martial Academy's professor couldn't say anything more. He only snorted coldly to express his dissatisfaction. Immeasurable Star-Lord turned around and looked at Soli. "Yang Tian is fine." After saying this to Immeasurable Star-Lord, Soli turned around and walked into the academy, no longer paying attention to Immeasurable Star-Lord. She knew that the Immeasurable Star-Lord only wanted to hear this sentence. It's good that you're fine." Immeasurable Star-Lord sighed and turned to leave. This time, Immeasurable Star-Lord was forced by Qin Fei to personally come to the Superstar Academy. His daughter had said that if he did not personally come to investigate Yang Tian's situation, she would not recognize him as her father in the future. Therefore, after Immeasurable Star-Lord received the news, he rushed over from a distant place. In fact, he already knew some of Yang Tian's situation. He just wanted to confirm it with Soli. This time, Immeasurable Star-Lord was finally relieved. After leaving the Superstar Academy, he still had to go to the Superstar Divinity Temple. It was really not easy to be a father. It was the same no matter where. After thinking for a while, Yang Tian finally thought of a way. That was to create a tool that could detect rune energy. This was just like the demoning tools created by humans on Earth, which could find mines hidden in the ground. It had to be said that this was also a method that Yang Tian had no choice but to come up with after letting his imagination run wild. As soon as Yang Tian thought of this, the strange program actually agreed. Although it had the ability to think independently, it still needed Yang Tian to decide what to do. If Yang Tian's opinion could work, it would carry it out. If not, of course, there was nothing it could do. This was a complicated process. The first step was to design a tool that could detect the existence of rune energy. After this tool detected rune energy, it had to be translated into nerve signals that Yang Tian could understand. The second step was to compare and analyze what kind of energy the detected rune energy belonged to. Was it space energy, time energy, or virtual physical energy? The third step was to crack the detected rune energy. This process was the same as the process of demoning. Detect the mine, analyze what kind of mine it was, and then demine it. Yang Tian could only think of this method. Fortunately, the strange program told him that this method could be achieved in theory, but the final result would only be known after precise calculation and design. Such a thing, not to mention someone like Yang Tian who did not understand runes, even the great priest who was proficient in runes would find it difficult to do. The great priest could rely on his knowledge and experience of runes to crack the rune mechanism, but he could not do such a precise thing. Yang Tian still did not know that the rune program he had the strange program right, which was equivalent to a detector, would be of great help to him in his future training. Therefore, there was nothing in this world that could not be thought of, but there was nothing that could not be done. The little blue dragon was still lying on Yang Tian's shoulder with its eyes closed, sleeping. Yang Tian was leaning against the stone platform with his eyes closed, as if he had also fallen asleep. The space within the meteorite fell silent for a moment. Looking at the expression on Yang Tian's face, it was clear that he was not sleeping at all. Instead, he was constantly thinking. Although he was not designing it himself, Yang Tian still felt dizzy and uncomfortable when the strange program was calculating at high speed. Every once in a while, Yang Tian would take out a piece of stellar crystal and absorb its energy. The great priest saw Yang Tian's actions and was somewhat puzzled. Was it possible to crack the rune mechanism just by thinking? Or had Yang Tian already given up? The great priest's purpose was to let Yang Tian continuously crack the rune mechanisms so that Yang Tian could gain as much experience as possible. After staying here for a long time, the flying cloud great priest spent all his time on these rune mechanisms. The rune mechanisms set up on the pile of crystals could be said to be the greatest masterpiece of his life. He simply did not believe that Yang Tian could crack them all in a short time. That would take many years. The great priest had already waited for many years, so he did not care about a few years, or even a few decades. The great priest could not help but chuckle when he saw Yang Tian closing his eyes and thinking hard. 3 days later. The program to detect rune energy and the method to use rune energy has been written. Give it a try now. Suddenly, Yang Tian's mind became clear, and the strange program's voice sounded. Chapter 420. Great! Yang Tian couldn't help but shout in his heart. He hadn't expected it to be completed so quickly. Next, it was time to experiment. The detection program had been written, but it still had to be tested to know if it was suitable or not. The following process wasn't easy at all. Yang Tian still had to expend a large amount of energy to activate the runes. This was the same as in movies and TV shows where one had to use hand gestures to simulate all kinds of movement. During this process, one's fingers and palms had to emit energy in coordination. Several or even dozens of streams of energy had to form runes or combinations of runes. In fact, this was also a way to use runes. Yang Tian, who had been silent for 3 days, finally began to move. The strange program controlled the movements of Yang Tian's hands, while Yang Tian was responsible for coordinating the energy in his body. Yang Tian's consciousness and the strange program existed in Yang Tian's brain. In fact, they were closely connected and could communicate rapidly. In an extremely short amount of time, complicated communication could be completed. Yang Tian began to move. The flying cloud high priest also opened his eyes and looked at Yang Tian. After standing up, Yang Tian opened his mouth and shouted, "Rise." Then, he put his hands together. His palms and fingers were constantly changing. Sometimes the palms were facing each other, sometimes they were separated, and sometimes they were extended. These movements were full of rhythm and were very beautiful. As Yang Tian's hands kept changing positions and forming all kinds of movements, waves of energy were emitted from his hands. This was rune energy. As soon as this energy was emitted, the Flying Cloud High Priest's black robe began to stimulate his nerve. The Flying Cloud High Priest knew that Yang Tian's hands were emitting rune energy. The rune energy produced by runes formed from energy was a very strange kind of energy. It needed to be highly compatible with the surrounding energy, so it couldn't be detected by cultivators. Therefore, cultivators who were proficient in the Tao of Talismans would usually create tools to detect this kind of rune energy. For example, the black robe worn by the Flying Cloud Great Priest. This black robe looked black, but in fact it was embroidered with dense runes. If there were hidden rune energy waves in the surroundings, the corresponding rune on the black robe would sense it and let the Flying Cloud Great Priest know the strength, attribute, location, and other information of the rune energy. In Superstar Academy, Professor Fu Wei's black robe, which was embroidered with white runes, naturally had this function. Yang Tian hadn't thought of this, but he had the strange program write an extremely complicated detection program. Then, using various hand gestures to form runes, it would generate hidden rune energy and touch other rune energy to obtain the result. No matter how powerful a rune cultivator was, they would not be able to do such a complicated process. Only someone like Yang Tian, who had the help of a strange program, could do it. Although the process was complicated, it was not without benefits because there would be more feedback. If Flying Cloud Great Priest and the others used material rune tools to detect the hidden rune energy, it would be a passive method. In that case, Yang Tian's method was the active method. It was like a human's eyes and radar. A human's eyes actually passively received images of the outside world. The distance they could see was limited, and so was their field of vision. A radar could detect things very far away and know the direction, distance, height, and other detailed information of things. The Flying Cloud Great Priest noticed the rune energy waves emitted from Yang Tian's hands, but he didn't know why Yang Tian was doing this. However, when he saw how fast and stable Yang Tian's hands were moving, the rune energy ripples emitted were extremely fast, causing him to feel shocked. If the Flying Cloud Great Priest was an earthling and had some ruffian temperament, he would definitely sigh and say, "Sh*T, is he even human?" The rune energy waves emitted from Yang Tian's hands quickly came into contact with the other hidden rune energy in this space. As soon as the two came into contact, the information returned was detected by the strange program. Okay, the first step is completed. Now let's begin the second and third step. Soon, the voice of the strange program sounded again. Yang Tian let out a long breath and sat down. Less than a minute had passed, but the power of the dragon orb was enough to slash out tens of millions of sword cheese. After sitting down, Yang Tian closed his eyes again. What's this kid doing? The Flying Cloud Great Priest glanced at Yang Tian and was puzzled again. As Yang Tian's master in runes, he didn't even know what his disciple was doing. If word got out, it would definitely be embarrassing. The Flying Cloud Great Priest shook his head slightly and closed his eyes again. This was also a way for him to maintain his energy. Very quickly, 10 days passed. Yang Tian stood up again because the strange program had reminded him that all the programs had been written. While telling Yang Tian the good news, singular programming also reminded Yang Tian that the program it created was flawed as well. Due to the lack of information about the runes, it was unable to obtain enough information. However, the rune traps set up for the Flying Cloud Great Priest were enough. This was because the thick book from before was the Flying Cloud Great Priest's work. It contained the Flying Cloud Great Priest's lifetime of research. Because it had read such rune information, the strange program was able to perfectly crack the rune traps set up by the Flying Cloud Great Priest. Of course, it wasn't impossible to crack the rune traps set up by other cultivators. If the runes used by other cultivators were cruder than the Flying Cloud Great Priest's runes, it could also be cracked very easily. It all depended on the actual situation. Yang Tian moved again. The flying cloud great priest opened his eyes again, and looked at Yang Tian curiously. Yang Tian raised his hands again and his hands kept changing. Rune energy was also released from Yang Tian's hands. Soon, the strange program received the feedback and presented it to Yang Tian's vision system after processing it. For Yang Tian, it was as if he had opened the heavenly eye. Previously, what appeared in Yang Tian's eyes were star crystals and some other good things. Now, not only were there star crystals in his eyes, but there were also countless rune energy threads. These runic energy lines were densely packed and represented by a blue color. They were distributed on the surface of the star crystals in a net-like manner, like ropes that were holding the star crystals in place. In addition to the star crystals, there were also runes on the ground. The countless energy threads finally converged into one and extended below the flying cloud great priest. Chapter 421. All the rune mechanisms here were under the control of the flying cloud great priest. This wasn't what surprised Yang Tian. What surprised him was that there were simply too many rune mechanisms here, and from the looks of it, they were tightly packed together, and there was one in every corner. Whether it was the stellar crystals, the ground, the ceiling, or the walls, they all had rune mechanisms. In Yang Tian's eyes, they were all covered with a network of rune energy lines. Yang Tian kept turning his head and looking around. This naturally fell into the eyes of the great priest. In the end, Yang Tian followed the rune energy lines and looked at the great priest. Seeing Yang Tian look at him, the great priest asked indifferently, "Did you sense it?" "Yes." Yang Tian nodded. The great priest asked Yang Tian if he sensed it, not if he saw it. This was because rune energy couldn't be seen and could only be felt. "Since you sensed it, then go and crack it," the great priest said. At this moment, the great priest was actually looking forward to it even more than Yang Tian. Just now, the great priest had already understood the rune energy fluctuations emitted by Yang Tian's hand gestures. Because he hadn't tried it, he didn't know the details. If it wasn't for the fact that time was running out, the great priest would have definitely put aside his pride and asked Yang Tian for guidance. Age didn't matter when it came to cultivation. Only those who had reached the top were qualified. "Okay." Yang Tian nodded and raised his hands again. In fact, when he stopped, the strange program had already been calculating based on the feedback and finding the loopholes in these rune mechanisms. Nothing was perfect. Even if the great priest had set up a very dense rune mechanism and they were connected to each other, it could still be cracked. The great priest didn't have the strange program, so he naturally couldn't see the rune energy lines. The rune mechanisms he set up weren't that precise. If he used physical runes, that was, carving runes on various materials to create rune mechanisms, it would be very easy to crack them. All he had to do was add or delete some runes on the carrier that was full of runes. In order to crack the rune mechanism formed by the flying cloud great priest's pure energy, rune energy was required. Under the control of the strange program, Yang Tian cooperated with the strange program to mobilize the power of the Dragon Balls. Along with his various hand movements, rune energy was emitted from his hands. In Yang Tian's vision, countless rune energy lines appeared once again. Last time, at this point, his hands had stopped moving. At this moment, Yang Tian's hands were still making various gestures under the control of the strange program. At this time, in Yang Tian's eyes, the runic energy lines were no longer blue, but had changed into various colors. The energy of each type of rune mechanism was represented by a color. For a moment, Yang Tian's eyes were filled with colorful lines, and the rune energy emitted from his hands was also expressed by the strange program. They were like countless droplets of water that splashed from his hands and fell on those energy lines. This process was very strange for Yang Tian. Of course, Yang Tian also understood that what he was seeing wasn't real, but a situation simulated by the strange program. It was so that he could understand it better. After the droplets fell on those energy lines, they started to have an effect. As if they had a powerful corrosive ability, those energy lines were corroded and broken one by one. Those energy lines that lost contact with the main energy lines started to slowly disappear. Seeing this, Yang Tian was very surprised. These complicated rune mechanisms were cracked just like that? Of course, it wasn't that simple. At this time, the Flying Cloud Great Priest smiled again, but his smile was a bit strange. Using this method to decipher the rune mechanism consumed a lot of energy. After about 10 minutes, Yang Tian started to feel exhausted. Yang Tian had no other choice but to stop. When Yang Tian stopped, those broken energy lines actually reappeared, just like how a cultivator's body would recover after being injured. The rune mechanisms set up by the Flying Cloud Great Priest actually had a self-repairing function. When Yang Tian stopped, the rune mechanism returned to its original state. Clearly, the strange program's calculations were wrong and didn't expect this to happen. No wonder the Flying Cloud Great Priest smiled before. That smile looked very strange. At this time, Yang Tian turned his head and saw the same smile on the Flying Cloud Great Priest's face. The skin on his face was dry and wrinkled, and his smile had changed. However, his eyes were emitting a proud and confident light. This old man. Yang Tian also smiled and said in his heart before turning his head away. Next, Yang Tian sat down again. The strange program's design wasn't perfect, and needed some time to perfect the cracking process. In the process of failure just now, the strange program also learned a lot. And Yang Tian also seized the time to replenish his energy. Squeak squeak, at this time, the little blue dragon lying on Yang Tian's shoulder woke up and let out 2 comfortable cries. After sleeping for several days, the little blue dragon's body completed a complete transformation. In fact, after Yang Tian reforged its dragon body, the little blue dragon's control of its own energy was still a little flawed. Just like a cultivator who suddenly advanced, after completing the advancement, they also needed a period of adaptation. After letting out 2 cries, a green shadow flashed and the little blue dragon jumped from Yang Tian's shoulder and landed on the pile of crystals in front of him. Yang Tian couldn't help but open his eyes wide. At this moment, his heart was in his throat. He thought to himself, this guy is too rash. However, what puzzled Yang Tian was that after the little blue dragon landed on the pile of stellar crystals, it didn't trigger any runic mechanism. Yang Tian finally relaxed, knowing that the little blue dragon wouldn't act recklessly. It must have done this because it had something to rely on. After jumping a few times on the pile of stellar crystals, the little blue dragon held a piece of stellar crystal in its mouth and swiftly flew back, landing on Yang Tian's shoulder. At this moment, the little blue dragon's eyes were filled with pride. Great Shaman, what's going on? Yang Tian then recalled how the Great Shaman had said that he was inferior to the little blue dragon. Looking at the Great Shaman's calm expression, he didn't seem to find anything strange about what had just happened. Yang Tian couldn't help but ask with a puzzled expression. Because it swallowed that rune book. The Great Shaman said faintly, that book is made of a special material. It won't be digested in a pet beast's body. This material is also a carrier for runes. The energy it emits is like a key. Yang Tian finally understood after the Great Shaman said this. It turned out that the runic mechanism here didn't work on the little blue dragon. That was why the little blue dragon could take away a piece of stellar crystal without triggering the mechanism. At the same time, Yang Tian recalled a hobby of the dragon race, and that was to collect treasures. Chapter 422. In the future, the little blue dragon would be able to break through any runic mechanisms it encountered. This could be considered a new ability of the little blue dragon. However, this ability wasn't omnipotent. It might not work on other runic mechanisms. When he saw the little blue dragon jump onto the pile of stellar crystals and bring back a piece of stellar crystal with its mouth, Yang Tian thought that the little blue dragon had the ability to digest the knowledge in the book after swallowing it. Of course, this was impossible. It was too fantastical. To put it bluntly, it was just an energy reaction. After thinking it through, Yang Tian raised his hand and said to the little blue dragon, "Xiao Long, can you spit out that book and let me take a look?" Ji. The little blue dragon told Yang Tian that it couldn't do it. Yang Tian had the inherited memories of the dragon race. After dreaming a few times, he naturally knew that dragons had this hobby. No, it should be a special ability. After growing to a certain stage, if they encountered some energy sources that were helpful to their survival and fighting, they would swallow them into their stomachs and store them in their bodies. The energy emitted by these energy sources wouldn't be affected by their bodies. This way, they would have many strange abilities. This was actually like the strange program stored in Yang Tian's brain. The little blue dragon only gained this ability after growing to the superstar realm. There were no signs of it before. No wonder the little blue dragon's senses were so sensitive. When it was on Earth, it could clearly distinguish the exotic beasts around it and the beast cores in their bodies. In the bubble space, it could find corpses that many cultivators couldn't even detect. This was a natural talent that dragons were born with. As it grew, this talent would become more and more obvious. No wonder the flying cloud great priest threatened to roast the little blue dragon and eat it. The flying cloud great priest probably paid a huge price to obtain the materials for that book. "You can't rely on your pet beast to crack the runic mechanisms here," the flying cloud great priest suddenly said. "I understand." Yang Tian nodded. The little blue dragon was just showing off its new ability to Yang Tian. It wanted to help Yang Tian. In the end, the great priest of the flying cloud's words ended the little blue dragon's thoughts. As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon looked at the flying cloud high priest with dissatisfaction. Flying cloud great priest had offended the little blue dragon when he said that he was going to roast the little blue dragon. If the little blue dragon wasn't afraid of the flying cloud great priest, it would have roasted the flying cloud great priest first. Not long after, Yang Tian began to feel dizzy again. The strange program began to perfect the decryption program and began to perform high-speed calculations. Although it was just a modification, it was still a complicated process. 2 days passed quickly. When his mind became clear again, Yang Tian knew that the strange program had completed its modification. "It's done." Moments later, the strange program's voice sounded in Yang Tian's mind. In these 2 days, Yang Tian had been constantly replenishing his energy and had absorbed at least several hundred pieces of stellar crystals. The previous decryption process seemed very simple, but in reality, it had consumed a large amount of energy in Yang Tian's body. "Rise!" Yang Tian shouted again. At this moment, the flying cloud great priest opened his eyes. For some reason, he felt that the runic mechanisms he had spent a lot of time setting up were about to be cracked this time. This was a kind of intuition. Although it was just an intuition, the flying cloud great priest knew that his intuition was very likely to be true. At this moment, he couldn't help but recall countless years ago when he left the superstar divine temple. An old prophet had warned him not to get involved in that matter. This was because he would never be able to return after leaving the superstar divine temple this time. Many years later, he would meet a mystical person. At that time, the high-spirited flying cloud great priest didn't believe it at all, because the prophet's prophecies could sometimes be changed. But in the end, sure enough, he couldn't go back. And the mystical person that the prophet spoke of was definitely this young man in front of him. Although this was the case, the flying cloud great priest didn't regret it, because he knew some secrets that others didn't know. This universe. After sighing in his heart, the flying cloud great priest focused his attention on Yang Tian. At this moment, Yang Tian's hands were rapidly changing hand signs, forming many afterimages. However, the flying cloud great priest could see it clearly. With his powerful memory, the flying cloud great priest noticed that Yang Tian's hand signs had changed again. At this moment, Yang Tian was already in the second stage, decrypting the runic mechanisms. Just like last time, countless rune energy lines appeared in Yang Tian's vision. Each type of rune mechanism was also represented by a different color. In Yang Tian's vision, the runic energy emitted from his hands was no longer little by little, like raindrop. Instead, it turned into countless threads. These threads were all red, and after spreading out, they wrapped around the runic energy lines. The energy lines of the rune mechanism were quickly replaced by these threads. In addition to this change, Yang Tian also noticed that the decryption this time wasn't as laborious as before. And those runic energy lines that were replaced by these threads all turned red. In Yang Tian's vision, this replacement process was like a slow-moving electric current. First, it replaced the runic energy lines in the space, and then spread towards the flying cloud great priest. In less than 5 minutes, all the runic energy lines under the flying cloud great priest had turned red. It's done. At this moment, the strange program's voice sounded in Yang Tian's mind. The strange program was enough, which meant that all the runic mechanisms here had been changed, and they would no longer be controlled by the flying cloud great priest. This was the most practical method that the strange program had found after countless calculations. That was replacement, or rather, overriding. Although the strange program was an intelligent program made of runes, it was also affected by the digital program. Overwriting the original data was just a way for the digital program to change the data. The flying cloud great priest could clearly sense this change. After the overwriting was completed, the flying cloud great priest opened his eyes and said faintly, "What's the last step?" Yang Tian nodded. Under the gratified gaze of the flying cloud great priest, Yang Tian raised his hands and rapidly made a few gestures. Runic energy was emitted from his hands again. Almost at the same time, the red lines in the entire space disappeared. This also meant that the runic mechanisms set up by the flying cloud great priest had all been decrypted. Chapter 423. Can I collect these stellar crystals now, High Priest? After deciphering the rune mechanisms, Yang Tian asked after inspecting them a few more times and confirming that he had deciphered all of them. The High Priest glanced at Yang Tian before closing his eyes and ignoring Yang Tian. It was obvious that the old man didn't want to give Yang Tian a definite answer. Since High Priest Feiyun had agreed, it meant that all the rune mechanisms here had been cracked. If the High Priest didn't agree, there might be other rune mechanisms. The rune energy lines Yang Tian saw had been simulated by a strange program. If the program hadn't detected them, they wouldn't have appeared in Yang Tian's vision. Since the High Priest wasn't fooled, Yang Tian wasn't afraid either. He started collecting the stellar crystals. The space in his black storage bracelet was very spacious. It wouldn't be a problem to store all the stellar crystals here. After spending an entire day, all the stellar crystals, some green crystal boxes, and some materials that Yang Tian didn't recognize had been stored in Yang Tian's storage bracelet. No rune mechanisms had appeared during this process. After everything was taken away, the space within the meteorite became empty all of a sudden. It was a good place to cultivate. Next, he would have to reach the superstar grade before he could leave. There was a huge gap between the star grade and the superstar grade. Without a large amount of energy, it would be impossible to reach the superstar grade in a short time. At the same time, it would take time. After all the stellar crystals had been collected, a teleportation formation disk appeared on the left side of the stone wall. Saw Air and Chu Yen Guiying had used this teleportation formation disk to leave. At the moment, the disk wasn't operating. It was closed. Yang Tian only glanced at it before looking away. Next, Yang Tian took out all the green crystal boxes in one go and piled them into a huge pile. Yang Tian counted. There were a total of 1,215 green crystal boxes. When he saw Yang Tian take out these boxes, he knew that he was going to count the beast cores in them. The high priest opened his eyes and glanced at Yang Tian before closing them again. During this process, one could see that the high priest's eyes weren't as bright as they had been before. At this moment, Yang Tian was in a state of extreme excitement and did not notice the change in High Priest Fei Yun. High Priest, how did you obtain these beast cores? There are so many. There were more than 1,000 beast cores in these boxes. The more Yang Tian looked at them, the more excited he became. He couldn't help but ask this question. Now, these things belonged to him. This was the first time Yang Tian had so many cultivation resources. At the same time, this was also a huge fortune. If he sold so many beast cores, he would be able to buy a prosperous and habitable planet. Or to build a mobile fortress. However, the high priest didn't answer Yang Tian's question. When Yang Tian opened a box and found a purple beast core inside, Yang Tian turned his head again and looked at the high priest. Yang Tian wanted to ask what grade this beast core was. At this moment, Yang Tian was shocked to find that the high priest seemed to have lost all strength. His head was drooping down. The life force coming from the high priest was also much weaker than before. Yang Tian immediately threw down the box in his hand and jumped onto the stone platform to help the high priest up. High priest, what's wrong? Yang Tian shook the high priest and asked worriedly. At this moment, Yang Tian had already guessed that the high priest's life force had weakened because he had collected those stellar crystals. Heh heh. After a long while, the high priest opened his eyes and laughed. He looked at Yang Tian with gratification in his eyes. Great shaman, how did you? Yang Tian was unable to continue when he spoke until here. The little blue dragon was lying on Yang Tian's shoulder. Although it wasn't happy with the high priest before, it was also a little sad at this moment. The little blue dragon also knew that the old man in front of it was going to lose his life very soon. The high priest's laughter was hoarse, like the sound of metal scraping against each other. After his laughter stopped, he raised his hand and pushed Yang Tian away. He was also a stubborn old man. He didn't want to be supported by Yang Tian at this moment. Then, High Priest Fei Yun took out a yellow beast core from his storage bracelet and put it in his mouth. After swallowing the beast core, the flying cloud great priest finally recovered his mental state after a long while. However, this situation couldn't be maintained for long. This was because Yang Tian could clearly feel that the high priest's body was emitting waves of energy after he swallowed the beast core. It was obvious that the high priest's body could no longer store energy. His body was like a leaky net. No matter how much energy he replenished, it would dissipate very quickly. My life has always been maintained by these talisman arrays. Since you've broken them, I naturally won't be able to live for long. In fact, I should have died many years ago. The high priest said with a smile after he recovered his energy. Then let's restore it. Yang Tian hurriedly said when he thought that this was indeed the case. However, the high priest waved his hand. There's no point in living like this. After so many years, this old man is also tired. While this old man still has time, I'll tell you what I should tell you. With that, the high priest extended a hand to Yang Tian. Help this old man up. Yang Tian immediately got up and helped the high priest up. During this process, Yang Tian felt as if the high priest's body was weightless. With Yang Tian's help, the high priest stood up and slowly pushed Yang Tian away. The high priest, who was standing alone, was swaying unsteadily. He looked like a paper figurine blown by the wind. After he steadied himself, the high priest slowly bent down and lifted a corner of his black robe. At this moment, Yang Tian saw that the high priest's legs were very thin. There was only a thin layer of dried skin on his leg bones. After letting Yang Tian take a look, the high priest put down the hem of his black robe and straightened up. He smiled at Yang Tian. This is the result of my greed. Yang Tian didn't understand what he meant. Seeing Yang Tian blinking his eyes with a puzzled expression, Flying Cloud Great Priest slowly walked forward. His lower limbs were already very stiff. When he walked, it was as if he was walking on stilt. Flying Cloud Great Priest walked a few meters away from where he had been sitting cross-legged. At this moment, Yang Tian saw that there were 9 triangular buttons where the High Priest had been sitting. This was clearly the activation button for a mechanism. From here to there, 1 to 9. The order of activation is 7, 6, 3, 1. Then, the Flying Cloud Great Priest explained the sequence of activating the mechanism. Chapter 424. After Yang Tian memorized the order of the buttons, he took a few steps forward, squatted down, and pressed a few buttons. When the last button was pressed, the stone platform began to vibrate slightly. The Flying Cloud Great Priest was about to fall over. Yang Tian hurriedly supported him and walked to the edge of the stone platform. Amidst the shaking, the middle of the stone platform separated, and a 2-meter-long, 1-meter-wide, and half-a-meter-tall green crystal box slowly rose up. The surface of this green crystal box was covered in runes. When the big stone box completely appeared on the stone platform, the Flying Cloud Great Priest said indifferently, "Open it." The Flying Cloud Great Priest only said these 2 words, but Yang Tian noticed that the Great Priest's voice was trembling. This old man seemed to be somewhat excited, Yang Tian thought to himself. "Okay." Yang Tian responded and immediately walked to the side of the big stone box. This big green stone box gave Yang Tian the feeling that it was actually a stone coffin. Before it was opened, Yang Tian already guessed that it was most likely related to that mysterious young man in the legend. Inside might be the corpse of that mysterious young man, or some items he left behind. Thinking of this possibility, Yang Tian also became excited. After inspecting it, Yang Tian knew how to open it. This big stone box was made from a whole piece of green crystal. After meticulous digging and carving, it was made into the main body, and then a stone lid was added. The structure was the same as a coffin. When Yang Tian opened the lid, he discovered that it was really a stone coffin. This was because there was a headless human corpse lying inside. As soon as the stone coffin opened, a powerful energy fluctuation spread out from the stone coffin. This energy fluctuation made Yang Tian feel a strong sense of oppression. Even the little blue dragon lying on Yang Tian's shoulder couldn't help but feel nervous and vigilant. Although this corpse emitted a powerful energy fluctuation, it didn't have any life aura. This made Yang Tian feel relieved. Star-state cultivators could reform their bodies even if their bodies were shattered. This corpse's life-form level was clearly much higher than that of a star-state cultivator. As soon as he opened the sarcophagus, Yang Tian was afraid that the corpse would come back to life. The headless corpse was wrapped in black cloth, revealing only its arms and 2 legs. Its skin was somewhat pale, devoid of blood, but it was still smooth and full of moisture. "This is..." Looking at the corpse, Yang Tian said in surprise. High Priest Feiyun slowly walked over with stiff legs, saying as he walked, "You guessed right. This is the mysterious young man, an outsider." Outsiders? Yang Tian was shocked. This was because High Priest Feiyun was a powerhouse of this universe. The outsiders he spoke of were from outside this universe. How could this not surprise Yang Tian? That's right. High Priest Feiyun had already walked to Yang Tian's side and said, "His appearance gave us hope, but we destroyed it with our own hands." "Why do you say that?" Yang Tian asked curiously. High Priest Feiyun shook his head and sighed, not answering Yang Tian's question. Instead, he said to Yang Tian, "When you go back, give it to the Superstar Divinity Temple. When you reach a certain level, you will understand." High Priest Feiyun did not answer this question, which made Yang Tian feel very regretful. However, he also guessed that many powerhouses who tortured themselves might have done so for this reason. For these powerhouses, reaching the highest level was their life goal. How could they not be heartbroken when they destroyed this goal with their own hands? Yang Tian closed the sarcophagus and put it in his storage bracelet. He planned to give this sarcophagus to the Superstar Academy as soon as he went back. This thing was a hot potato for him, and it was not something he could possess right now. Seeing Yang Tian put away the sarcophagus, High Priest Feiyun said, "Do you know why this old man's legs became like this?" Yang Tian shook his head, his eyes full of expectation. He knew that High Priest Feiyun would definitely give him an answer. High Priest Feiyun said, "Because this old man took this corpse and did an experiment. I wanted to use my own body's cells to devour it and use it to change my life realm. In the end, I lost both my legs." Was that even possible? When High Priest Feiyun said this, Yang Tian could not help but have the same thought. It was all because of this old man's greed that this happened. Otherwise, this old man would have a long time to live. High Priest Feiyun's words were both a sigh and a warning to Yang Tian. Yang Tian naturally understood this. However, having the corpse of a powerhouse was still extremely powerful. It would be a pity if he did not use it to study it. I've already given you what I should tell you. I hope you can fulfill my third request. I'm really tired after holding on for so long. I'm going to sleep for a while. While Yang Tian was thinking, High Priest Feiyun suddenly sat down cross-legged and said faintly. The more he spoke, the softer his voice became until it was inaudible. At the same time, High Priest Feiyun's life aura became weaker and weaker until it completely disappeared. This was too sudden. He died just like that. There were still so many questions to be asked. Couldn't he have lived for a few more days? Yang Tian blamed High Priest Feiyun in his heart. This was because he was very sad. High Priest Feiyun was, of course, not a good person. Like other cultivators, he ignored the lives of others and was arrogant. However, Yang Tian did not feel any of this. He only knew that these old men had passed on the last thing they had in their lives to him. Therefore, Yang Tian was very sad. After kneeling down and kowtowing 3 times to High Priest Feiyun, Yang Tian straightened up and looked at the corpse of High Priest Feiyun. "I will definitely abide by the third agreement. I will not leave here until I reach the Superstar realm." After saying that, Yang Tian stood up and came to the corpse of High Priest Feiyun. With a wave of his hand, the corpse of High Priest Feiyun was put into the storage bracelet. If this corpse was sent back to the Superstar Academy, Yang Tian would also be rewarded with 1 million credit. At the same time, High Priest Feiyun would also return to his roots. High Priest Feiyun could not return to the Superstar Divinity Temple when he was alive. After his death, he could finally go back. After letting out a long breath, Yang Tian lay on the stone platform with his arms and legs spread out. He looked at the ceiling with his eyes wide open. At this time, he could not help but think about how it would feel if he were to stay here alone for tens of thousands of years. Probably, he would go crazy, right? Soon, Yang Tian closed his eyes and made a slight snoring sound. He actually fell asleep. The little blue dragon lay next to Yang Tian's head. It did not sleep. Instead, it stood upright and turned its head from time to time to protect Yang Tian. Chapter 425. After sleeping for about a day and a night, Yang Tian finally woke up and opened his eyes. During this period of time, he had passively consumed a lot of brain power and a lot of energy in his body. This sleep finally allowed him to catch his breath and feel 100 times more energetic. Yang Tian was really not used to the absence of the old flying cloud high priest. After rolling his eyes and looking at the spacious space, Yang Tian turned over and sat up. Squeak, squeak. At this time, the little blue dragon's cry suddenly sounded. Then, a green shadow flashed and landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. With the little blue dragon by his side, Yang Tian would not feel lonely. After scratching the little blue dragon's head, Yang Tian walked down the stone platform and began to count the beast cores. Previously, he found a purple beast core and wanted to ask the Flying Cloud High Priest about it, but something like that happened. Yang Tian looked at the purple beast core in his hand again and again. He really wanted to crush the transparent protective shell on its surface to see what level the beast core was. Xiaolong, do you know what level this beast core is? Yang Tian waved the beast core in front of the little blue dragon and asked. The little blue dragon stretched its neck and sniffed. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Immediately after, the little blue dragon let out a cry. It was actually a superstar warrior level beast core. It turned out that the little blue dragon could determine the level of these beast cores. This was great. Just now, Yang Tian was still blaming himself for his lack of knowledge. He should have read more related knowledge when he had nothing to do. A silver-white beast core was a star warrior level, a yellow one was a star king level, and a black one was a star king level. Yang Tian already knew the difference between the beast cores of these three colors. This difference was equivalent to Qin Fei telling him about it. Yang Tian was at the stellar warrior level. If he wanted to advance to the next level, he would need beast cores above the stellar warrior level. From this point of view, Yang Tian knew that although Qin Fei was in the superstar divine hall, she was always paying attention to him. It was a pity that he didn't see Qin Fei the last time he went out with Soli. There was also a blue beast core, which belonged to a stellar warrior. Soli had swallowed a beast core of this color during her advancement last time. As for the beast cores of stellar domain lords, they were red. Previously, when Yang Tian killed the two giant beasts, the cores that he took out from their bodies were red. The beast cores that he made should also be red. When the green crystal box was opened, the little blue dragon confirmed Yang Tian's judgment. The red beast core was indeed a stellar domain lord beast core. There was also the superstar warrior level beast core. It was a golden beast core. It looked like a piece of gold. After spending half a day, Yang Tian had opened a total of 1,215 boxes and obtained a corresponding number of beast cores. After counting, he found that the blue stellar warrior beast cores were the most numerous. There were a total of 512 of them. There were 306 silver-white stellar warrior beast cores, 200 yellow stellar king beast cores, 102 black stellar lord beast cores, and 75 red stellar domain lord beast cores. Finally, there were 19 purple super warrior level beast cores, and only one golden super star warrior level beast core. With so many beast cores, Yang Tian had undoubtedly made a fortune. He didn't understand how the Flying Cloud High Priest had obtained so many beast cores. Yang Tian didn't understand because he didn't know that a rare rune master was very popular in the universe. When the Flying Cloud High Priest had been alive, some powerhouses had needed a rune master like the Flying Cloud High Priest to help design the runes on the armor in order to make a set of top-notch armor. In addition to this, some families had to build family fortresses. Some powerhouses had to build tombs after they died, so rune mechanisms had to be set up. Of course, there was a price to pay in order to get the help of a big shot like the Flying Cloud High Priest. Most of them were beast cores and some rare materials. After a long time, the Flying Cloud High Priest had only used some of them and kept the rest. In the end, Yang Tian had benefited. With so many beast cores, especially the superstar warrior level beast cores, Yang Tian wouldn't have to worry about energy to cultivate from his current realm to the superstar warrior level. He could also sell some beast cores in exchange for star crystals to do some other things. For example, he could establish a powerful universe organization. Yang Tian didn't want to be hunted down by the Taichu family all the time. It was very necessary to have his own force. However, if he really wanted to do this, he would need a plan. After calming down the messy thoughts in his mind, Yang Tian made a mark on the box containing the beast cores and put more than 1,000 stone boxes into his storage bracelet. There were less than 9 months left until the Superstar Divinity Temple's Divine General Assessment at the end of the year. It was also time to advance his realm. Ever since he had advanced to the Star State, Yang Tian had gone through several high-intensity battles and stimulated the potential in his body. It was also time to advance his realm. After making the necessary preparations, Yang Tian took out a yellow star warrior-level beast core from his storage bracelet. After looking at it, he swallowed it. This advancement was the smoothest advancement Yang Tian had had since he had become a martialist. The surroundings were very quiet and there were no disturbances. The source of energy was also extremely abundant. Under these favorable conditions, it only took Yang Tian 3 days to successfully advance. He had advanced from a Star Warrior level cultivator to a Star Warrior level cultivator. The last time he advanced to the Star Warrior level was during the battle with Guo. Now that he thought about it, it felt like not much time had passed. This was also the case in reality. His advancement speed was too fast. For others, it could be described as terrifying. This was because Yang Tian had obtained the dragon's inheritance, possessed the dragon's bloodline, and had the Dragon Ball world in his body. During his last advancement, the glowing point in the Dragon Ball world had turned into a cyan egg. Outside this egg there was a 9-colored halo. After this advancement, he had absorbed a lot of energy. The egg in the Dragon Ball world had not changed much, but it had grown bigger. There was also the light emitted by the 9-colored halo, which had become a little brighter. Yang Tian estimated that the Dragon Ball world would undergo a great change. He estimated that he would have to wait until he advanced to the superstar state. Next, it was the mental power world. In previous battles, the mental power had brought Yang Tian great benefit. Now, Yang Tian's mental power level was not even as good as Chu Yan and Guiying's. Yang Tian closed his eyes and checked the mental power world with his consciousness. He judged that his mental power level was only at the planet warrior level. Chapter 426. In fact, when Yang Tian came out of the Death Star field, his mind power level was not that high. The reason why he advanced to the planet warrior level was that his mind power was replenished from time to time during his later training. During this process, his mind power world also became bigger and bigger. Basically, Yang Tian's mind power met his needs. Therefore, Yang Tian did not specifically upgrade his mind power. At the same time, Yang Tian did not have enough energy to upgrade his mind power world. Now, he had enough energy. Next, Yang Tian took out a blue star warrior level beast core from his storage bracelet. After breaking the transparent protective shell, Yang Tian swallowed the beast core. A few minutes later, waves of heat rose in Yang Tian's lower abdomen. A small part of the energy was still absorbed by Yang Tian's body cells. A part flowed into the Dragon Ball world, while the majority was guided by Yang Tian's mind power into his mind power world. To Yang Tian's Star Warrior level body, the energy released by this Star Warrior level beast core was only a trickle. However, to his mind power world, it was like a flood. Rumble, with the replenishment of this energy, Yang Tian's mind power world began to vibrate. A part of the energy that entered his mind power world turned into the shape of a dragon, while the other part turned into the earth, trees, and rivers. During this process, his mind power world was also constantly expanding. When Yang Tian's mind power world had just been formed, Chu Yan Guiying was surprised that Yang Tian's mind power world was too vast. She did not expect Yang Tian's mind power world to be able to continue expanding. This was because only a wider world of spiritual power could give birth to more dragons. Dragons were born to be free, so they needed a wider space to accommodate them. This was also because when Yang Tian's mind power world was formed, it was affected by the power of the Dragon Ball, which resulted in the current situation. Every mind power cultivator had their own mind power world. The mind power that existed in this mind power world was all mimicry. This mimicry could be animals, plants, and all kinds of other forms. The reason for this was that humans had their own preferences. This kind of mimicry could make it easier for mind power cultivators to control it. The environment required for each form of spiritual energy was different as well. Animal mimicry required a wider world, while plant mimicry required a narrower mind power world. As the spiritual power world vibrated and expanded, the dragon-shaped spiritual power became very active. The azure dragons suddenly became thicker and stronger. Yang Tian felt that these green dragons had evolved to a higher level. Half a day passed. After absorbing the energy of a Star Warrior Beast Core, Yang Tian's mental power world was still not satisfied, so he swallowed another one. Yang Tian did not lack beast cores, he could even eat them as snack. The second core, third after 3 whole days, Yang Tian swallowed 6 Star Warrior level beast cores. Yang Tian's mind power level had also increased to the Planet Domain Lord level. 6 Star Warrior level beast cores had been absorbed by the mind power world, yet his mind power level had only increased by 4 levels? This was something Yang Tian had not expected at all. It seemed that increasing one's mind power required at least 5 times more energy than increasing one's physical body level. Yang Tian's mind power level had already surpassed Chu Yen Gaing's. Of course, this was only a comparison of quantity and quality. In terms of the use of mind power, he was far inferior to Chu Yen Gaing. After increasing to the Planet Domain Lord level, Yang Tian felt that his mind power world was still not satisfied. There was still a lot of room for improvement. Yang Tian could not help but think that this was because his physical body level had already reached the Star Warrior level. In that case, his mind power level could also be increased to a corresponding level. If Yang Tian's body was a container, then his mind power could be compared to water. The improvement of Yang Tian's physical body level was equivalent to the expansion of the container. Naturally, it could hold more water. Since there was still a lot of room for improvement, Yang Tian did not hesitate. He took out a silver-white Star Warrior level beast core from his storage bracelet. 2 days later. Whoosh! Boom! Yang Tian's mind power world finally changed. And this change made him very surprised. This was because countless lightning bolts suddenly appeared in his mind power world, and the light became dim. As the lightning bolts fell and struck the ground began to shake and crack into countless pieces. This situation was like an earthquake. Then, countless trees, flowers slowly withered, and the rivers gradually dried up. In Yang Tian's vision, this situation was like the end of the world. Not only that, but the ground was still shaking and cracking more and more. The cracks between them formed ravines, and the ravines became deep valleys. During this process, the green dragons that existed in this world suddenly dissipated and turned into green mist, which was absorbed by the deep valleys formed after the earth cracked open. At this time, Yang Tian had a warning sign in his mind. There was not enough energy. For others, this situation was extremely dangerous because if there was not enough energy to replenish, the mind power world would be destroyed. Yang Tian opened his eyes and quickly took out a yellow Star Warrior level beast core from his storage bracelet and swallowed it. A few minutes later, boom! With a loud noise, Yang Tian's mind power world completely collapsed. The strong vibration made Yang Tian feel extremely uncomfortable. He felt dizzy as if his body had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Yang Tian gritted his teeth and persevered, trying to keep himself awake. Squeak squeak! The little blue dragon noticed Yang Tian's abnormality and felt the strong and chaotic energy fluctuations in Yang Tian's body. It immediately asked. Yang Tian could not hear the little blue dragon's voice at this time. His consciousness had completely sunk into darkness. In this dark world, Yang Tian could clearly feel the existence of those fragments after the collapse of his mind power world. In this situation, Yang Tian, who had always been calm, also became nervous. He did not expect that the increase of his mind power realm would be so dangerous. If he knew this would happen, he would not have rashly increased his mind power realm. Yang Tian, whose consciousness was completely in this dark world, had basically lost control of his own body. If it were other cultivators, they would have already declared that they were finished. However, Yang Tian was not. There was still a strange program in his brain. Of course, the strange program did not want to be finished with Yang Tian. Chapter 427. Without the interference of Yang Tian's consciousness, the strange program could control Yang Tian's body. At this moment, the strange program realized that Yang Tian needed energy. Therefore, the strange program controlled Yang Tian's body, opened his storage bracelet, took out a green crystal box, and took out a black star Lord-level beast core. Because it could read the information in Yang Tian's brain, the strange program was very proficient in controlling Yang Tian's body. Then, if Yang Tian completely lost his consciousness, would the strange program be able to completely control Yang Tian's body? That was the so-called possession. Of course, that wouldn't work. If Yang Tian lost his consciousness, he would lose his life as well. Without Yang Tian's consciousness, his body's cells would die very quickly. If it was the body of an ordinary human, the strange program might be able to try. But for cultivators, their bodies had already evolved to a new level of life. Their cells were more tightly controlled by their consciousness, and their connections were more intimate. Even if the strange program had some evil thoughts, it wouldn't be able to do it. As for ordinary humans, their brains couldn't accommodate the strange program at all. In the darkness, Yang Tian was a little anxious. Suddenly, some fine light spots appeared around him. As soon as these light spots appeared, the whole dark world gradually brightened. Yang Tian's vision recovered, and his consciousness could feel the existence of his body again. With the replenishment of sufficient energy, those light spots became brighter and brighter. The fragments of the shattered mental power world also appeared clearly in Yang Tian's vision. Then, something strange happened again. Those shattered fragments reassembled at an extremely fast speed, forming planets one after another. The original mental power world turned into a cosmic space. Although Yang Tian's vision couldn't see the edge of this universe, he knew that this universe wasn't the same as the one outside his body, which was infinitely large. In Yang Tian's perception, the process of fragmenting the star only took a dozen or so minutes. But in the outside world, a whole 10 days had passed. Feeling that the energy in Yang Tian's body was gradually stabilizing, the little blue dragon was finally relieved. In fact, even if the strange program hadn't helped Yang Tian, the little blue dragon would have found a way to replenish the energy Yang Tian needed. Because the little blue dragon had a mysterious connection with Yang Tian, it could naturally sense what Yang Tian needed. When the planet was completely formed, the transformation process this time was not completed. This cosmic space still needed a lot of energy replenishment. The strange program had taken control of Yang Tian's body and taken out the beast core. After Yang Tian woke up, he didn't blame the strange program. He knew that the program had done the right thing. After interacting with the strange program for so long, Yang Tian had great trust in it. Previously had swallowed a Star Lord level beast core. This time, Yang Tian took out a red Star Domain Lord level beast core from his storage bracelet. This kind of energy consumption surprised Yang Tian. This was because he had only swallowed a Stellar Warrior level beast core to complete the advancement of his physical body. The advancement of his mind power had actually swallowed a Star Domain Lord level beast core. Perhaps after digesting this beast core, he would still need a lot of energy. He wondered if he would have to swallow the only Superstar Warlord level beast core in the end. As soon as this red Star Domain Lord level beast core entered his body, not only did Yang Tian's mind power world react, but even his physical body also reacted. Yang Tian had been so focused on his mind power world that he had neglected the fact that at least 1/5 of the energy had been absorbed by his body during the process of swallowing the beast core. The cells in his body that had absorbed enough energy had also changed. Unknowingly, Yang Tian's physical body had advanced to the Star Lord level. As for the cyan egg in his Dragon Ball world, it also underwent a change. Previously, it had been cyan. Now, there were golden spots on it. The colorful rings surrounding this egg were emitting a brighter light. Yang Tian hadn't noticed this change yet. He was completely focused on his mind power world. If Yang Tian had noticed the changes in his body, then what happened next might not have happened. Cultivation was a very precise process. At the same time, it was also a risky and exciting process. Some cultivators might have mediocre performance at a lower level, but when they advanced to a higher level, their combat power would suddenly become extremely powerful, far surpassing others of the same level. Perhaps it was because something unexpected had happened during the process of his advancement. And this kind of accident might be able to create a genius. To put it bluntly, this was the same as the evolution of ordinary humans. The cells of ordinary humans would also undergo mutations. This kind of accident that happened to cultivators was like a mutation. Of course, it would be considered good if 1 out of 1,000 people could survive this kind of accident. Therefore, no cultivator wished for something unexpected to happen during their advancement. The more types of energy a cultivator cultivated, the more likely it was that an accident would occur during the advancement process. This was much higher than cultivators who cultivated only one type of energy. Yang Tian's body had at least 4 types of energy. The Dragon Ball's power, bloodline power, and mind power. In addition to these 3 types, there was also the fusion of these 3 types of energy and the origin power. For a cultivator who possessed 3 types of energy, the chances of an unexpected change occurring during the process of advancement was about 50%. For someone like Yang Tian who had 4 types of energy in his body, if no accident occurred, the heavens would be blind. What was the accident? When the energy of the Star Domain Lord level Beast Core was absorbed by Yang Tian's cells, his mind power world, Dragon Ball's power, bloodline power, and origin power first, the situation in his mind power world had changed. On those newly formed planets, beautiful and habitable environments appeared. However, those glowing points in the universe suddenly dimmed. Next, in Yang Tian's Dragon Ball world, that green egg covered with golden spots, cracks suddenly appeared on the surface. Then, the strengthened origin power began to run amok in Yang Tian's body uncontrollably. The world of spiritual power gradually turned dark. In the Dragon Ball world, after the green egg shattered, what came out was not a dragon as Yang Tian had guessed, but a dazzling ball. The moment it appeared, it was like a star, emitting a scorching light. At this time, Yang Tian noticed the changes in the Dragon Ball world. Chapter 428. At this time, Yang Tian finally realized that something was wrong and immediately separated a part of his consciousness and entered the Dragon Ball world. When this scorching, star-like sphere was formed, the temperature of the entire Dragon Ball world became higher and higher, giving Yang Tian the feeling that the entire world was about to be baked. Rumble! This scorching light began to slowly rotate, emitting a rumbling sound, giving Yang Tian a very heavy feeling. At the same time, it also emitted a strong attractive force. Under this strong attractive force, the entire Dragon Ball world began to shrink rapidly. At the same time, the spiritual world became colder and colder. One hot and one cold made Yang Tian feel very uncomfortable, experiencing the feeling of ice and fire at the same time. Just when Yang Tian didn't know what to do, a blood-red energy suddenly rushed into the 2 worlds. This energy is the origin force. After absorbing enough energy and growing stronger, it would become this color, looking like blood. The origin force is an extremely overbearing energy. At the same time, it is a fusion of 3 types of energy and has the attributes of spiritual power and the power of the Dragon Ball. Therefore, when the Dragon Ball world and the spiritual world changed, it was attracted and overbearingly rushed into the 2 worlds without the control of Yang Tian's consciousness. When the origin force entered the 2 worlds, the spiritual world was still pitch black. However, the Dragon Ball world was dyed red by it. It looked like a world of blood. Chaos. Complete chaos. Yang Tian didn't know what to do at this time. In this regard, he has no experience and has never seen it before. Not to mention Yang Tian, even the top powerhouses in the universe have never seen or even heard of this kind of cultivation accident. Now Yang Tian can only wait passively. Soon, the strengthened origin force was divided into 3 parts. 1 part continued to stay in Yang Tian's body, while the other 2 parts entered Yang Tian's spiritual world and the Dragon Ball world respectively. At this time, a strong energy demand once again appeared in Yang Tian's consciousness. Both the Dragon Ball world and the spiritual force world require powerful energy replenishment. Sure enough, this was the case. Yang Tian sighed helplessly in his mind. He took out the purple Super Star Warrior level Beast Core and swallowed it. The energy emitted by a Super Class Beast Core was incomparable to a Star Class Beast Core. A Super Star Warrior level Beast Core contained dozens of times more energy than a Stellar Domain level Beast Core. As soon as this rich energy appeared in Yang Tian's body, it was like a storm that violently attacked Yang Tian's body. First of all, the origin power in his physical body was absorbing the energy from the Beast Core at a crazy rate. In the blink of an eye, it had grown dozens of times stronger than before. The strengthened origin power began to rapidly catalyze changes in Yang Tian's cells. However, the changes in the cells were far from enough to satisfy the growth of the origin power. One by one, Yang Tian's cells were stuffed to death by the origin power. This was an extremely fast process. In a few seconds, Yang Tian's body looked as if it had been placed in a pool of hydrochloric acid and corroded for several hours. His skin and muscles had completely melted, turning into a dark gray liquid that flowed down Yang Tian's skeleton. The thing that was most afraid of the changes in Yang Tian's body wasn't Yang Tian, but the strange program stored in his body. This was because the strange program was stored in Yang Tian's brain cells. When Yang Tian's brain began to melt, the strange program panicked. It didn't want to disappear because of this. What should it do? The strange program wanted to communicate with Yang Tian, but it was as if Yang Tian had completely lost his consciousness. It couldn't wake him up. Fortunately, the little blue dragon was there. The little blue dragon discovered the changes in Yang Tian's body, but it cried out excitedly. This guy had already realized something. Although the little blue dragon, who had the inheritance of the dragon race, hadn't been born in this world for as long as Yang Tian, it had the inherited memories of its ancestors. A large portion of the inherited memories had already been awakened in its body. Speaking of which, in terms of cultivation, it was much more knowledgeable than Yang Tian. The little blue dragon immediately scratched its forehead with its claws, forcing out a drop of golden dragon blood. Then, the little blue dragon shook its head and threw the dragon pearl that contained the essence of the dragon race onto Yang Tian's body, landing on Yang Tian's spine. At this time, the origin power had already gathered in Yang Tian's bones, turning Yang Tian's bones into a blood-red color. As soon as the dragon pearl landed on Yang Tian's body, a large amount of origin power seemed to have found its home, crazily surging into the drop of dragon blood. Among the 3 types of energy that made up the origin power, there was the existence of the dragon pearl's power, and Yang Tian's dragon pearl's power came from the little blue dragon. In addition, Yang Tian's body cells had also been modified by the little blue dragon, possessing a portion of the dragon race's bloodline. Therefore, the origin power smoothly surged into the little blue dragon's drop of dragon blood. The little blue dragon was already a superclass dragon, so its body cells were naturally incomparably powerful. Under the stimulation of the origin power, they began to divide and grow crazily. Soon, red muscles crawled all over Yang Tian's bones. Starting from his head, all kinds of organs began to regenerate. After Yang Tian's body melted, it could be seen that the Dragon Pearl world and the spiritual world that existed in Yang Tian's body did not exist in the same physical state. Countless years had passed, but no cultivator had been able to figure out where they truly existed. Some cultivators guessed that the energy world in the body was like a storage space, which could not be seen with the naked eye. In a few minutes, Yang Tian's body grew again, looking exactly the same as before. However, he looked even more handsome now. The strange program thought it was done for because Yang Tian's brain cells were down to the last bit. If it continued to disappear, it would have to cut off a part of itself. First, it had to be the information vault. This way, all its previous efforts would be in vain. Fortunately, Yang Tian's body cells recovered in an extremely short period of time, and it was even stronger than before. Furthermore, it was even more powerful than before. To the strange program, this process was like upgrading its hardware. After the little blue dragon released a drop of blood that contained the dragon's essence, it did not look like it was exhausted like before, and its expression became dispirited. At this time, it kept circling Yang Tian's body that was lying on the ground, its eyes full of joy. The changes in the body, from the beginning to the speed of growth, only lasted for a short few minutes. And in the two energy worlds, only a blink of an eye had passed. When Yang Tian's body became stronger, these two energy worlds also changed. First, the two parts of Yang Tian's consciousness suddenly merged together. Chapter 429. Yang Tian's two parts of consciousness, which originally existed in two energy worlds, actually fused together uncontrollably. While Yang Tian was surprised, suddenly, two energy worlds appeared in his vision. This was something that would never have happened in the past. Because the Dragon Ball world and the Spiritual Force world are two completely different worlds, there is no direct connection between them. But now, while Yang Tian was still confused, suddenly, the two worlds changed. Boom! A loud noise shook Yang Tian until he felt dizzy. The two energy worlds actually collided with each other. Is it over? Yang Tian was shocked. He was afraid that after the two worlds collided, they would all be destroyed. But what happened next made Yang Tian feel relieved. Because although the two energy worlds collided together, there was no explosion, nor was there a situation of space annihilation. Instead, they actually fused together. The sphere emitting a hot light that broke out of the dragon egg had already arrived in the spiritual force world, illuminating the entire spiritual force world. And those planets that existed in the spiritual force world that had just formed were attracted by this huge sphere. They rotated and flew towards this huge glowing sphere. Yang Tian already knew that the Dragon Ball that was born in the Dragon Ball world had already transformed into a star. And the original continent in the spiritual force world had turned into a planet. The following situation, as Yang Tian expected, dozens of planets began to rotate around this star, forming a small galaxy. With the illumination of the light, those planets once again became full of vitality. Yang Tian didn't need to count the number of planets, but he knew it in his heart. There were a total of 36 planets. These planets were of different sizes, quietly rotating around the Dragon Ball that had become a star. On these planets, countless azure dragons appeared. Each of them had a huge body, and the pair of horns on their heads had actually turned golden. This was the change that happened when the little blue dragon advanced last time, but he didn't expect that it would actually appear on these azure dragons that were formed by spiritual force. Looking at this strange small galaxy, Yang Tian felt like he was the ruler of a universe, feeling his strength and incomparable confidence. In addition to the Dragon Ball that had turned into a star, and the 36 planets formed by the transformation of the spiritual force world, Yang Tian also felt that there was an invisible power in this universe. And this power was the Force. The Force maintained the existence of this world, and kept this small universe in balance. Then, this world that is equivalent to 3 kinds of power, let's call it the Force world. Yang Tian thought. After confirming that the Force world had stabilized, Yang Tian withdrew his consciousness from the Force world and woke up in his body. As soon as he opened his eyes, Yang Tian felt his strength. Just now, when Yang Tian's body melted, the little blue dragon used its essence blood to help Yang Tian reforge his body, allowing Yang Tian's body to evolve again. Star Lord rank. After feeling the powerful power contained in his body, Yang Tian immediately judged his current physical realm. The spiritual force world and the Dragon Ball world had already fused together to form the Force world. Yang Tian's spiritual force, of course, had also risen to the Star Lord rank. Another realm, and he would be able to break through to the Superstar realm. With the strength of his spiritual force, Yang Tian's senses naturally became sharper. At this time, he could feel that the ground under him was emitting a rumbling sound. In addition to the sound, he could also feel that his body was slowly and irregularly moving along with a huge object. It seemed that the flying cloud great priest did not lie to Yang Tian. This space indeed existed in a huge meteorite. Sharpening one's senses was also a troublesome thing. It was fine in this place where there was no one, but if one entered a densely populated place, all kinds of sounds could make one feel annoyed. Yang Tian's mind moved, and his senses became a little slower. Squeak, seeing that Yang Tian was fine, the little blue dragon, who was lying on the side and observing Yang Tian for a while, let out 2 excited cries. Then, it jumped onto Yang Tian's shoulder. Xiaolong, it's all thanks to you this time. Yang Tian happily patted the little blue dragon's head and said with a smile. Although Yang Tian's attention was all on the 2 energy worlds before, Yang Tian was very clear about what the little blue dragon did for Yang Tian. In order to thank the little blue dragon, Yang Tian took out a grill, fresh meat, and various seasonings and began to barbecue. Superstar Divinity Temple. During this time, Qin Fei was very uneasy and did not have the heart to cultivate because she was worried that something would happen to Yang Tian. For most of the day, she walked around the goddess palace, seeming to have a lot of things on her mind. Even some of the duties in the temple were declined by her. For example, she had to summon some of the temple staff, who came back to report on their work, receive the distinguished guests of various races, and so on. I wonder if there's any news from father. While Qin Fei was talking to herself, suddenly, the white-robed maid, Larry, walked in quickly. Goddess. After arriving in front of Qin Fei, Larry bowed and said, "How is it?" Qin Fei looked around and after confirming that there was no one around, she asked Larry in a low voice. After breaking the temple's rules many times, Larry was no longer so nervous and said in a low voice, "Immeasurable Star-Lord has personally confirmed that Yang Tian is fine and will probably be back soon." Hearing Larry's words, Qin Fei was finally relieved and her brows relaxed. In reality, the Superstar Divine Temple was equivalent to a family fortress built in the universe. However, it could show off its grand appearance and did not need to be hidden like a family fortress, so it gave people a very grand feeling. The Superstar Divine Temple was a collective name that included more than 100 grand palaces. These palaces occupied a very large area. Added together, the entire Earth's area could not accommodate them. The hundreds of palaces were distributed in a staircase. The higher the height, the higher the status. As the most respected goddess in the temple, the goddess palace that Qin Fei was in was naturally one of the palaces with the highest power. A few kilometers away from the goddess palace, the lower ground was the temple's conference hall. At this moment, in the conference hall, hundreds of priests and high priests of the temple were sitting in a circle. The high priests with the highest status naturally sat in the middle. Those with lower status could only sit on the outside. Hong Yujiu had already been promoted to high priest and was one of the dozens of high priests in the temple. Naturally, he sat in the circle in the middle. These hundreds of people were all top existences in the universe. Their realms were at least at the peak of the superstar realm. It was rare for the superstar divine temple to gather together to discuss the temple's affairs. Chapter 430. The Superstar Divine Temple was an organization of powerhouses, but in reality, it was the governing body of many star fields. However, it did not interfere with the political affairs of the countries under its jurisdiction. The rulers of these countries had to pay a portion of their wealth to the Superstar Divine Temple every once in a while. Apart from paying tribute, the people of these star fields were not allowed to slander the Superstar Divine Temple or speak words that went against the will of the Superstar Divine Temple. In addition, if a war broke out between countries, one side could apply to the Superstar Divine Temple for mediation, and the Superstar Divine Temple had the final say. Before the ruler of each empire inherited the throne, they had to first report to the Superstar Divine Temple. Apart from that, there were many other detailed rules. This kind of ruling method was similar to the ancient Shang and Zhou dynasties of China, where they ruled by feudal vassals. It was also similar to the political and religious rule of Western countries. When hundreds of priests and high priests held a meeting together, they would naturally discuss important matters. In Goddess Shichen's generation and before, the goddess would always be present when such a meeting was held. However, ever since Goddess Shichen, the temple had tacitly agreed that the goddess would not be allowed to participate in such a meeting. At the same time, the freedom of the goddess was also restricted to a certain extent. Among the hundreds of priests, especially the high priests, all had top-notch abilities. For example, there was the omniscient high priest Kaya, the high priest Hong Yujiu who could see through people's hearts, and the high priest Tai Yu who was proficient in runes like high priest Fei Yun. The Superstar Divine Temple was an organization and did not have an absolute ruler, which was why such a meeting was held. This old man and high priest Yu Huing have calculated that within this cosmic calendar, there will definitely be a major matter that threatens our Superstar Divine Temple. In the previous cosmic calendar, although the source of that unforeseen event was extinguished by our predecessors, the root of it still exists. A stooped high priest slowly stood up under the gazes of hundreds of people and spoke in a low voice. The cosmic calendar he spoke of was equivalent to about 50,000 years on Earth. That unforeseen event referred to the trouble that Goddess Shichen and that mysterious young man had brought to this universe. Many cultivators would guess that although this universe was vast and seemingly infinite, there was another universe that was similar to this universe. However, when the Superstar Divine Temple was established, in order to establish its ruling position in this universe, it claimed that this was the only universe space, and the top realm for cultivators was the Great Star God. However, as time passed, as countless years passed, more and more people began to doubt those claims. Even the few experts of the Superstar Divine Temple who had cultivated to the peak, that is, the experts who had become great star gods, had mysteriously disappeared. These powerhouses had left the Superstar Divine Temple to pursue a higher realm of life. Although everyone knew about it, no one was allowed to say it out loud in order to prevent the Superstar Divine Palace from losing its dignity. This was just like a country's constitution. If the constitution lost its prestige in the hearts of the people, then the country would definitely be doubted by the people. It might even shake the foundation of the country. Therefore, the things that everyone understood were not allowed to be spread around, lest the Superstar God Temple collapse like a decaying building. This stooped old man was called Guan Yu. He and great priest Yu Chen were the two prophets of the Superstar God Temple. The so-called prophets were cultivators who could foresee the future. Foreseeing the future wasn't a mysterious thing, as there was still time energy that made up the universe. As long as one could make use of some time laws to foresee the future, it wouldn't be difficult. The sages of Earth had said that everything had a cause and effect. If these prophets were able to foresee something, then the outcome could be changed. Great Priest Guan Yu mentioned Yang Tian at the end. He said that Yang Tian was the key to severing that source. When he heard Yang Tian's name, Hong Yujiu frowned and looked at the expressions of Great Priest Guan Yu and Great Priest Yu Chen. Hong Yujiu was very good at observing people's expressions and knew how to make a choice. He was a person who understood worldly affairs. Therefore, during this period of time, he had turned a blind eye to the matter of Qin Fei contacting Yang Tian through the immeasurable Star-Lord. This was because the black-clothed masked man that Hong Yujiu had seen previously had really shocked him too much. In front of that person, he hadn't dared to even think about resisting. Therefore, he no longer interfered in matters related to Yang Tian and the current goddess. When he saw the expressions on the two prophets' faces and subtle movements when they mentioned Yang Tian, he wanted to know why Qin Fei had been chosen as the goddess. The process of Qin Fei becoming the goddess had really puzzled Hong Yujiu. Although he had brought Qin Fei to the Superstar God Temple, he had only been an errand boy throughout the entire process. At the time, Hong Yujiu hadn't been a great priest yet. Therefore, he had followed Great Priest Guan Yu's instructions. Yang Tian. It must be that Yang Tian, when he saw the same expression on Guan Yu and Great Priest Yu Chen's faces when the two prophets mentioned Yang Tian, Hong Yujiu was certain that all of this had something to do with Yang Tian. Soon, Hong Yujiu thought that this might be a trap set up by a few old guys. In the previous universe calendar, Goddess Shi Chun and that mysterious young man had fallen into the trap of a few old guys. As expected of someone who could read people's minds, Hong Yujiu only needed to take a glance to know some of the answers he wanted to know. After Great Priest Guan Yu finished speaking, he slowly sat down. What this prophet had said was actually the problem that they would face after Yang Tian returned and brought back the corpses of Great Priest Fei Yun and that mysterious young man, as well as how to deal with it. In Great Priest Guan Yu's words, this was to cut off the source of the unforeseen event. Why would they do this? Naturally, it was to maintain the ruling position of the Superstar God Temple. Indirectly, it was to maintain the interests of these people. After making up his mind and setting up many solutions, he began to talk about the selection of divine generals in the Superstar Academy. If the Superstar God Temple was a government organization, then the priests were a group of politicians and divine generals. In fact, they were the thugs of these politicians. Speaking of this topic, a great priest named Tahi stood up and said the duties that each of the 5 divine generals would be assigned. The universe was very big, and the Superstar God Temple needed a lot of thugs. Moreover, there were often rebellions and so on. Although the Superstar God Temple was very powerful, there were many forces that opposed it. In the face of such a situation, the divine generals needed to intervene. Therefore, many divine generals would inevitably die in battle, and new divine generals would be needed to replace them. Great Priest Tahi proposed that the chief divine general selected this time needed to guard the 9 barbarian star zone. As soon as his voice fell, many great priests could not help but widen their eyes, looking a little surprised. Why? Because the 9 barbarian star zone was an extremely dangerous place, and the Superstar God Temple had almost completely abandoned that star zone. Sending divine generals there, wasn't this obviously sending them to their deaths? Tahi ignored everyone's surprised gaze, turned his head to look at the 2 prophets, and sat down. Chapter 431. After Yang Tian fed the little blue dragon with barbecued meat, the next step was to think about how to quickly break through to the Superstar realm. With the amount of beast cores Yang Tian had now, the energy should be enough. However, it was obviously not possible to directly consume these beast cores because Yang Tian's body cells had reached a state of energy saturation. If he wanted to break through again, he would need to train the cells in his body multiple times. This kind of training was best done through combat. Regardless of whether it was a fight with a real enemy or sparring with others, it would allow the cells in his body to be fully trained and digest most of the energy. This way, the cells in his body would be in a half-starved state with a need for energy, forcing them to evolve to a higher level. This was also why, regardless of whether it was the warriors on Earth or the cultivators in the universe, every time they broke through, they would need to go through a period of combat and training before they could break through again. If the level of training was not high enough, even if the beast cores were consumed, the body cells in a state of energy saturation would not be able to absorb them. This was like a bottle that was full of water and could not hold any more water. And the goal of training was to make this bottle bigger. With the little blue dragon around, Yang Tian did not lack opponents to train with. However, this space in the meteorite obviously could not withstand it. If he broke this meteorite when he sparred with the little blue dragon, it would be troublesome. Now, he needed the help of the strange program. Yang Tian's body had become stronger. What he experienced the most was not Yang Tian, but the strange program stored in his brain. This was because when it was calculating, its speed was at least twice as fast as before. Yang Tian's request for the strange program was to design a talisman array to strengthen this space so that superstar realm cultivators could fight to their heart's content here. The space here was enough, but it was not strong enough. After receiving the task, the strange program began to calculate. This was a huge system project that required time. If Yang Tian was still in the same realm as before, he probably would not be able to design it in a month. But now, the calculation speed was fast, and it would probably be completed in a few days. Yang Tian took out a purple superstar warrior beast core from his storage bracelet. At this moment, Yang Tian felt a little lonely. This was because Yang Tian was homesick. He thought of some things when he left Earth, especially when he looked at the beast core in his hand. For some reason, when Yang Tian saw this beast core, the first thing he thought of was Yang Nancy, whom he had a night with. Beast cores are a special kind of energy that can be absorbed by you and make you stronger. But to us, beast cores are of no use at all. Consuming stellar crystals is a type of energy mineral that can be directly absorbed by living beings. However, it is not unlimited. You have to constantly fight to develop your own potential. Only then can you consume more stellar crystals. Besides stellar crystals, there are many other ways to become stronger. Some races obtain energy by eating the bodies of other races directly. The beast race is like that. When he thought of Yang Nancy, Yang Tian's conversation with Yang Nancy appeared in his mind. It was also through Yang Nancy that Yang Tian had gained a preliminary understanding of the situation in the universe. Yang Tian had already become a cultivator in the universe, so he naturally had a lot of knowledge. When he thought of Yang Nancy's words, he realized that Yang Nancy's knowledge was not very wide. She probably had never seen the beast core that the cultivators in the universe were talking about. After all, he had slept with her. Yang Tian could not help but wonder if he should look for Yang Nancy when he had the time and see how she was doing now. A man would always have a deep impression of his first woman. Jade Sun race, Yang Tian muttered and sighed. Then, the image of his parents appeared in Yang Tian's mind. It had already been more than 3 years, right? When Yang Tian missed his parents also missed him. Parents would always miss their children who had left home. Yang Tian's father, Yang Lin, and mother, Wang Hong, had already settled down in Tianxiong City. The two of them had a good life. Although they were just ordinary enhancers, they had Yang Tian's good friend, Mark, Xiao Fei, Wang Guang, Lu Jian, Li Xian, Zhou Feng, Lu Xiao, and a large group of high-level enhancers protecting them. There was also the Wu family, so no one dared to provoke them. Since the appearance of the crystal tablet on Earth, the advancement of enhancers had sped up. In the short 3 years after Yang Tian left, many high-level enhancers had relied on the techniques on the crystal tablet to become peak level 9 enhancers. Mark, who was extremely talented, had successfully advanced to level 9 enhancer a year ago. Soon after, housekeeper Wu also became a level 9 enhancer. There was also Yang Tian's good friend, Zhou Hao, who was now a level 6 enhancer. Xiao Fei and the rest had also become level 7 or level 8 enhancers. It would not take long for them to become peak existences. With a large number of high-level enhancers appearing, the strength of humans on Earth naturally increased greatly. However, humans were greedy. When a large number of level 9 enhancers appeared, there was no lack of fighting. As the largest city on Earth, Hero City was still peaceful for the time being. It was already evening on Earth. Yang Lin and Wang Hong, Qin Fei's adoptive parents, Qin Yunlong and Shui Yu, were sitting in the courtyard of the villa drinking wine. Stars had already appeared in the sky. The four of them could not help but look up at the sky. They knew that Yang Tian and Qin Fei were in the vast and boundless starry sky. I wonder when Xiao Tian and Xiao Fei will come back. Wang Hong looked at the starry sky and could not help but mutter to herself, I hope they are safe. At this time, Shui Yu also said lightly. Although Qin Fei was not the biological daughter of Shui Yu and Qin Yunlong, they both treated Qin Fei as their own daughter. I wonder how father is. Qin Yunlong nodded and thought of his father, Qin Zhenyang. Who, screech, just when the four of them were in a bad mood, a strong wind suddenly sounded in the sky, followed by the cry of an eagle. 2 figures, one red and one white, quickly landed. The red one was the red-feathered eagle, and the white one was naturally the unicorn, Bai Shui. However, on White Snow's back, there was a beautiful girl. When Bai Shui landed on the ground and retracted her wings, the girl lightly jumped down from Bai Shui's back. Then, she smiled and walked quickly to the four of them. This girl had an extremely beautiful appearance, and was not inferior to Qin Fei at all. However, there was a slight difference in temperament. Qin Fei was a virtuous lady, while this girl was very charming. Looking at the girl walking over, Yang Lin and Wang Hong could not help but smile bitterly. Dad, Mom, I'm back. The girl looked at Yang Lin and Wang Hong and smiled as she called out. Perhaps they were already used to it, but the two of them were already immune to the girl calling them that. Ha ha! Fang Rong is here too. As soon as the girl sat down, a middle-aged man's laughter sounded. It turned out that the housekeeper, Wu Fang, had returned. The 5 of them immediately stood up. The little eagle immediately flapped its wings and went up to greet them. Chapter 432. Uncle Wu, you're back. The girl called Fangrong went up to Wu Fang and hugged his arm intimately. Wu Fang patted the girl's head dotingly. Immediately after, he took out a green beast core from his pocket and waved it in front of the girl's eyes. It was a 4th-grade beast core. The girl's eyes lit up when she saw the green beast core, and she snatched it from Wu Fang's hand. Yang Lin, Wang Hong, Qin Yunlong, and Shui Yu couldn't help but laugh when they saw the girl's cute and mischievous look. Ever since Yang Tian, Qin Fei, and Qin Zhenyang left, the 4 of them had felt a sense of loneliness. Especially Yang Lin and Wang Hong. Qin Yunlong and Shui Yu were high-ranked martial artists. They often went out to clear exotic beasts and expand the living space for humans, so they didn't feel anything. However, Yang Tian and Wang Hong had nothing to do, so this feeling was stronger. The girl's arrival gave the 2 of them a lot of comfort. However, what made things difficult was that this girl called Su Fangrong claimed to be Yang Tian's wife. She even said that Yang Tian personally agreed to it. This incident happened 4 years ago. That day, Su Fangrong and Su Jiao took a plane from Black Rock City to Wulan City. Unexpectedly, the plane encountered strong turbulence not long after taking off, and they had no choice but to land on the grasslands. On the way back to Black Rock City, the two sisters met Du Xiongwu's family. Du Xiongwu's son, Dui, and Du Qing wanted to humiliate Su Jiao, but they were saved by the little blue dragon and Yang Tian. At that time, Su Fangrong, who wasn't even 13 years old, made a promise with Yang Tian that she would be Yang Tian's wife when she grew up. Even if she couldn't be his wife, she could be his lover. Yang Tian thought that Su Fangrong was still young, so he didn't reject her. Several years later, the little girl had grown into a young woman. With the help of her older brother, Su Ying, she came to Hero City and found Yang Tian's parents. This was what happened next. Su Fangrong claimed that she had an agreement with Yang Tian and that she was Yang Tian's wife. This young girl was cute and diligent. She also said that she had nowhere to go, so Yang Lin and Wang Hong could only let her stay. Later on, Wu Fang was surprised to find that Su Fangrong's physique was very suitable to become a martial artist. He began to train her wholeheartedly, which was equivalent to taking in a disciple. "Old Wu, come and drink." Qin Yunlong greeted Su Fangrong with a smile as she stared at the grade 4 green beast core in her hands. Wu Fang smiled and nodded. Then, with a serious face, he said to Su Fangrong, "Why aren't you going to practice? Become a high-level martial artist as soon as possible. Didn't you want to find your brother Yang?" "Okay." Su Serong nodded vigorously and ran into the gravity room on the ground floor of the villa. Yang Tian and Wang Hong couldn't help but shake their heads when they saw Su Fangrong cheerfully enter the house in her white dress. Qin Yunlong and Shui Yu also smiled helplessly. They hadn't expected that Yang Tian had provoked such a troublesome girl a few years ago. While Wu Fang and the other four were chatting and laughing, Li Jun was sitting cross-legged in front of the tallest crystal tablet in a forest of steels near Weibo City. There was an array disk here that led outside of Earth. Li Jun had been guarding this place for many years. Li Jun wouldn't allow anyone to leave Earth through this array disk before they became a grade 9 martial artist. A modern city had been built around this forest of steels. Many martial artists had gathered here. Many martial artists practiced their battle techniques in this forest of steels, regardless of whether it was day or night. The battle techniques on these steels seemed simple, but after practicing them, they could allow the martial artists to quickly increase their realm. 3 years had passed, and hundreds of people had left Earth through this teleportation array disk in search of a higher realm. Li Junyang, on the other hand, had remained here. Even though he had reached grade 9, he didn't plan to leave Earth. Instead, he continued to cultivate. In fact, he didn't know what kind of realm he would reach if he continued to cultivate like this. It was another night filled with stars. Li Junyang opened his eyes and looked up at the countless stars in the sky. The night sky on Earth had become very clear and beautiful. Whoosh! Suddenly, Li Junyang lowered his head and waved the crystal pen around. All the moves he used came from these steels. On a starry night like this, Li Junyang could feel his body constantly absorbing the power of the stars with the help of the crystal pen in his hand. In the past few years, he had never consumed a single beast core, but he was able to reach grade 9. The energy he needed came from these stars. After he finished practicing the battle techniques on one steel, Li Junyang went to the next one. He had to at least master all the battle techniques on the steels before he could leave this place. This was the goal that Li Junyang had set for himself. It was night on Earth, but it was still day on the Crimson Flame planet. At the edge of the Red Desert, there were 2 groups of people gathered. On one side, there were about 200 martial artists from Earth. On the other side, there were cultivators from other exiled planet. In the past few years, Qin Jingyang had been fighting non-stop. Every race needed a place to live. In the past few years, Qin Jingyang had gathered all the descendants of those who were born on Earth and the descendants of those who were from Earth. They formed a tribe called the Fire Dragon Tribe. As of now, the number of core members of this tribe had reached more than 1,000. Even though there weren't many of them, they were not weak. This was the final battle. As long as they could kill the hundreds of people on the other side, the entire Crimson Flame planet would belong to the Fire Dragon tribe. The current Qin Jingyang was even younger and stronger than when Yang Tian left the Crimson Flame planet. Because he had been fighting a lot, there was a hint of savagery on him. If Yang Tian were here right now, he probably wouldn't be able to recognize Qin Jingyang. At this time, standing next to Qin Jingyang was a woman wearing animal skin. She was Qin Jingyang's wife, Yang Feng. The two of them had already reconciled. Kill! Suddenly, Qin Jingyang swung his saber and pointed forward. The Flame Dragon tribe's warriors rushed towards the other side with extremely fast step. The hundreds of people on the other side also rushed toward them. Phew! Yang Tian let out a long breath and put away the beast core into his storage bracelet. The little blue dragon saw Yang Tian's eyes and knew that Yang Tian was homesick. It felt that it was even more pitiful than Yang Tian. At least Yang Tian knew that he had family and friends back home. But it didn't know anything other than the name of its hometown. Yang Tian turned around and looked at the little blue dragon. When he saw the little blue dragon's lonely eyes, he knew that the little blue dragon was homesick as well. He smiled and comforted it. Xiaolong, don't worry. You will find your home. Chapter 433. 7 days later. The strange program finally completed the design of the array. Next, Yang Tian let the strange program control his body and engraved runes in the inner space of the meteorite. This cooperation was already very skillful. In addition, Yang Tian's body cells had advanced by 2 levels, from the Stellar Warrior level to the Stellar Lord level. For the strange program, it was equivalent to a hardware upgrade. Not only did the calculation speed increase, but the process of engraving runes was also more than twice as fast as before. It took about 10 days for the runes to be engraved. Now the entire space, whether it was the walls, the ground, or the ceiling, were all covered with tiny runes. Yang Tian stored the heavy rune pen into his storage bracelet, and then placed the thousands of star crystals in various energy points. Yang Tian let out a long breath, turned around, and said to the little azure dragon with a smile, "Little dragon, go and try it." The little blue dragon understood what Yang Tian meant and immediately transformed into a giant dragon. Roar! After transforming into a giant dragon of more than 20 meters long, the little blue dragon opened its mouth and roared. Then, it crashed into a stone wall. Boom! When the little blue dragon's head hit the stone wall, it made a loud noise. During this process, all the runes in this space lit up and disintegrated the little blue dragon's impact. The entire space didn't move even after the loud explosion. A direct impact could not shake this space. Then, when fighting with the little blue dragon later, the overflowing energy should not affect the entire meteorite. Yang Tian was sure that the Flying Cloud Priest had also engraved runes on the surface of this huge meteorite to maintain the stability of the meteorite. Boom! 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 One test was not safe. The little blue dragon tried many times in a row, and each time, it was stronger than the last. After dozens of times there were no problems. Xiaolong, that's enough. Yang Tian smiled and stopped the little blue dragon. The more this guy rammed, the angrier it became. If he did not stop it, it would use more and more strength. It might even smash the stone wall. During this collision, Yang Tian could see that the little blue dragon only used half of its strength. This level of strength was more than enough to train Yang Tian. As soon as Yang Tian's voice fell, the little blue dragon immediately stopped and turned around. Yang Tian smiled and waved at the little blue dragon. Xiaolong, come, let's practice. Before Yang Tian's voice disappeared, the huge little blue dragon blinked its eyes and arrived in front of Yang Tian like lightning. It slammed into Yang Tian's chest. With a muffled sound, Yang Tian's body flew up and hit the stone wall behind him. Good. Yang Tian was not injured. He suddenly shouted and kicked off the stone wall. His body was like a cannonball, catapulting towards the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon's current speed was not something Yang Tian could compare with. As soon as Yang Tian's body bounced out, the little blue dragon swept its tail over. With another bang, Yang Tian was swept to the ground by the little blue dragon's tail. With these two rapid movements, Yang Tian felt his body finally heating up. The energy in his body was being consumed in large amounts. This was exactly what Yang Tian wanted. After being hit and swept by the little blue dragon, Yang Tian's body was shaken and very uncomfortable. However, he immediately got up and pounced towards the little blue dragon again. Fighting with the little blue dragon like this was to train his body. Yang Tian did not use any weapons, origin power or spiritual power. In fact, even if he used these two powers, it would probably be useless against the little blue dragon. One had to know that when the little blue dragon reformed its dragon body, it already possessed these powers. Bang! 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 After that, every few seconds, Yang Tian would be hit and swept away by the little blue dragon. He would even be slapped to the ground by the little blue dragon's claws. The little blue dragon naturally understood that this kind of training was very important to Yang Tian. Under the circumstances where Yang Tian could withstand it, it tried its best to let Yang Tian receive the greatest impact. In the beginning, Yang Tian was still fighting the little blue dragon head-on. After being sent flying dozens of times by the little blue dragon, Yang Tian's fist did not even land on the little blue dragon's body. Thus, Yang Tian changed his tactics and began to move quickly to prevent the little blue dragon from locking onto him. This space was very wide, enough for a human and a dragon to move freely. Yang Tian used his fastest speed, but the result was still the same as before. He was constantly sent flying by the little blue dragon. This was because although he was fast, the little blue dragon was faster than him. Next, Yang Tian began to use his mental power again. This was because Yang Tian suddenly considered that mental power would be very important in future battles, and he also needed to train his mental power. Yang Tian had mental power, and so did the little blue dragon. Moreover, the little blue dragon was even more exquisite than Yang Tian in terms of using mental power. Yang Tian's body was often frozen by the little blue dragon, and then he was swept away by the little blue dragon's tail. This made Yang Tian sigh. There was really no comparison between a human and a dragon. The little blue dragon had just obtained mental power, but it could already use it skillfully. It was much stronger than him. Even using mental power could not teach the little blue dragon a lesson. Yang Tian completely gave up and began to fight casually. According to the time on planet Kaitra, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon had been fighting for a full 3 days. Although he could continue, Yang Tian stopped. This was only a form of training, and not a real battle. It was not good for the body to be overly tired. After 3 days of fighting, Yang Tian's energy had also been depleted by more than half. When he rested, the energy in his body could be recovered. This was the difference between a living being and a machine. When a machine ran out of energy, it could not be regenerated, but a living being could. After stopping, the little blue dragon transformed into a mini dragon and jumped onto Yang Tian's shoulder. Although he had been beaten up by the little blue dragon for 3 days, Yang Tian did not feel dissatisfied at all. He took out fresh meat and a grill from his storage bracelet and started to barbecue. After eating the barbecued meat and resting for a day, Yang Tian continued his training. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, time passed very quickly during the battle with the little blue dragon. The strange program would remind Yang Tian once every 3 days. Before he knew it, Yang Tian had been reminded 10 times. Once every 4 days, that meant a total of 40 days had passed. After being slapped to the ground by the little blue dragon for the last time, Yang Tian felt that he could advance again. This time, he could advance from the Star-Lord level to the Star Domain Lord level, reaching the peak of the Star-Lord level. Yang Tian's situation was rather special. If it had been any other cultivator, they would have only needed one Star Domain Lord level beast core to advance from the Star-Lord level to the Star Domain Lord level. On the other hand, Yang Tian needed 5 times the strength of others to complete the advancement of his realm. Chapter 434. After he was ready, Yang Tian took out 2 purple super warrior level beast cores from his storage bracelet. This was the energy that Yang Tian prepared for himself to advance. He had swallowed 1 before, and now he had 18 left. After adjusting his body and mind to the best state, Yang Tian put the purple beast core into his mouth and swallowed it. More than 40 days had passed here, which was equivalent to more than 2 months on Earth. According to Earth's time, there were still a little more than 6 months before the Super Star Divinity Temple's Divine General Selection in the Academy. Yang Tian didn't care about the position of Super Star Divinity Temple's Divine General at all. He only wanted to use this opportunity to see Qin Fei. Therefore, he had to hurry. Soon, powerful energy appeared in Yang Tian's abdomen and spread throughout Yang Tian's body. A part of it was absorbed by Yang Tian's body cells, and the majority of it poured into the origin world. As Yang Tian expected, the energy required by the origin world was very large. At first, the energy that entered this world was like a stone sinking into the sea. The origin world didn't react at all. As more and more energy poured into the origin world, the amount increased. After about half an hour, there was finally a reaction. The star formed by the Dragon Ball became brighter, and its size slowly increased. The planets also became a lot bigger. The speed at which they grew was only a little slower than the star. The bigger the planet, the stronger the gravitational force. The distance between these planets and the star also became farther. This change didn't affect the environment of the planet at all. On the contrary, the area above became wider and could accommodate more azure dragons formed by mental power. A day passed quickly. At this time, the energy of the Super Warrior level Beast Core was completely absorbed by Yang Tian's body cells and the origin world. Yang Tian had expected that the energy of 1 purple Beast Core wasn't enough. When the energy of the previous Beast Core was about to be completely absorbed, he swallowed another one. This time, it took a little longer to absorb the energy. With sufficient energy replenishment, Yang Tian's body cells finally began to change. 2 days later, before the energy of the second Superstar Warrior level Beast Core was completely absorbed, Yang Tian could already feel that he had successfully advanced to the peak of the Stargrade, the Stargrade Domain Lord. Perhaps it was because his body had changed too much, but this time the advancement process was very stable. There was no major event like before where the 2 worlds of power merged into one. Apart from the increase in the quality of Yang Tian's cells, the area of the small star system in the origin world had expanded several times. The most obvious change was that the size of the star in the middle had doubled. In fact, Yang Tian had thought about it when he saw the changes in the origin world. It was only a small galaxy now, but in the future would the origin world grow into a universe? After successfully leveling up, Yang Tian began to train by being beaten up by the little blue dragon again. Fighting with the little blue dragon was much more effective than training in the Academy's gravity room. It was no wonder that Soli often sparred with other students and made them avoid her. During this period, the formation disc would activate about once a day, and it would last about 5 minutes each time. Before the death of the Flying Cloud High Priest, the formation disc had not been activated like this. Yang Tian guessed that the Flying Cloud High Priest had made some changes to the formation disc after Soli, Chuyen, and Guing left. There was no need for the strange program to tell Yang Tian the time. Every time the formation disk lit up, he knew that a day had passed. After advancing to the Stargrade Domain Lord level, Yang Tian's strength and speed were a little faster than before. However, he was still beaten to the ground by the little blue dragon. This time, the little blue dragon's attacks were even more powerful. Not only was Yang Tian beaten to the ground, but he also often vomited blood. The powerful recovery ability quickly healed Yang Tian's injuries. However, this time, the duration of each session was not very long, nor was it fixed. After being injured, Yang Tian needed a period of rest. After recovering, he would continue to fight with the little blue dragon. Sometimes, Yang Tian would fight with the little blue dragon for 3 or 4 days. Sometimes, in less than half a day, Yang Tian would be beaten to the point of vomiting blood by the little blue dragon. Time passed very quickly as he focused on this training. After about 3 months, Yang Tian finally felt that it was time to advance to the superstar realm. The strange program had been telling Yang Tian the time. The time it calculated was the time of the Kaitros star. In other words, according to the time on Earth, there were less than 2 months before the Superstar Divinity Temple would recruit divine generals in the Academy. After finishing his preparations, Yang Tian took out the Golden Superstar Warlord level Beast Core. Because of the Force World, Yang Tian needed a huge amount of energy. It was several times or even dozens of times more energy than ordinary cultivators. Therefore, Yang Tian had to swallow a Beast Core that was beyond his level. If he swallowed a Superstar Warrior level Beast Core, Yang Tian estimated that he would need about 12 Superstar Warrior level Beast Cores. The value of these Beast Cores added up was even more expensive than a Superstar Warrior level Beast Core. The value of a Beast Core was about 8 to 10 times more valuable than a Beast Core of a lower grade. Therefore, it was more cost-effective to swallow a Superstar Warrior level Beast Core directly. Moreover, if he kept a Superstar Warrior level Beast Core, it could help a lot of people in the future. After finishing his preparations and adjusting his mind and body to the best state, Yang Tian pinched open the transparent shell of the Golden Beast Core. As soon as the shell of the Golden Beast Core was broken, it emitted a strong energy wave. The energy spread very quickly. Yang Tian didn't want to waste it. He immediately put the Beast Core into his mouth and swallowed it with a gulp. In less than a minute, a huge amount of energy appeared and rushed into Yang Tian's body. In just a few minutes, Yang Tian's body cells absorbed enough energy and began to evolve again. Most of the energy entered the Force world under the guidance of Yang Tian's mind. Advancing from a big realm to another big realm, whether it was the energy world or the body cells, there would be a huge change. With the huge influx of energy, the Force world finally began to shake and make rumbling sounds. This was due to a change in the origin power that maintained the balance of the origin power world. The fluctuations weren't intense. Yang Tian didn't feel any sense of danger. After his consciousness entered the Force world, he just watched quietly. In the shaking of the entire Force world, whether it was the star in the middle or the planets around it, they were all rapidly increasing in size. In the real world, this situation was, of course, impossible. This was because in this world all tangible objects were existences that resembled the shape of a person. Chapter 435. The planets grew bigger and bigger, occupying more and more space. In Yang Tian's perception, this small universe world was constantly expanding. But at the same time, the space also exerted enormous pressure on these planets, and this pressure was even greater than the power of the planets growing. Overall, the entire small universe space was like a balloon filled with air, and it was unknown when it would burst. Who knew what would happen when the origin world shattered? As more and more energy poured in, Yang Tian became more and more worried. But he couldn't do anything now. His body cells had absorbed enough energy, and if he stopped sending energy to the origin world, then his body cells might burst like last time. To Yang Tian, time was passing very slowly. Of course, this was only his illusion, and in reality, a full 5 days had passed. The little blue dragon was lying on the side, constantly paying attention to the energy aura emitted from Yang Tian's body. Sensing that the energy on Yang Tian's body had changed, the little blue dragon opened its eyes wide, and there was some nervousness in its eyes. It knew that this promotion was very important to Yang Tian. Boom! About 7 days passed in the real world, and suddenly Yang Tian's origin world exploded with a loud bang. In this explosion, Yang Tian's vision went black, and the world spun again. However, this process didn't last long. Soon, light appeared in Yang Tian's vision. After the large star shattered, the fragments lit up again and began to form a new star. As for those planets, they were also attracted by the nearby stars, forming new planets. At this time, in Yang Tian's vision, there were only planets as far as the eye could see. The number of stars had increased by at least 10 times, and the number of planets produced was even more. One by one, small galaxies gradually formed in Yang Tian's eyes. In the end, these small galaxies formed an even larger galaxy. Yang Tian's origin world finally had the appearance of a true universe. Even after the origin power world had stabilized, energy was still pouring in. With the addition of these forces, the power of the entire origin world slowly became balanced. At this point, Yang Tian finally understood that his origin world was constantly evolving towards the true universe. What kind of situation would it be if, one day, the world of origin power could be compared to the true universe? At that time, would the origin power world really become a universe under his control? And in this universe, would there be true life forms or even humans? From this, Yang Tian also thought about whether the real universe he was in was also a world in the body of a powerhouse. Thinking of this, a trace of fear appeared in Yang Tian's heart. He felt that he had suddenly become very small. Phew! After opening his eyes, Yang Tian let out a long breath. The conjecture just now was really too shocking. Squeak, squeak. At this time, the little blue dragon's cry sounded. Its voice was full of excitement. It was congratulating Yang Tian because Yang Tian had finally advanced to the superstar realm. Hearing the little blue dragon's voice, Yang Tian came back to his senses and realized that he had become very powerful. He didn't know if it was because of what he thought just now, or if it was because he would have this feeling after becoming a superstar cultivator. Yang Tian used 2 words to describe this feeling, and that was transcendence. The feeling was still a bit hazy, but Yang Tian understood that his lifespan had increased by thousands of times because he had advanced to the superstar realm. This was equivalent to getting rid of the limits of a normal life's lifespan and being able to live for thousands of years. This was only at the superstar warrior level. If he cultivated to the peak of the superstar realm, his lifespan could increase. In addition to being able to live longer, Yang Tian's body had also gotten rid of some environmental restrictions. For example, in space, Yang Tian didn't need to wear armor to survive. Feeling the changes in his body, Yang Tian couldn't help but mutter to himself, "No wonder this realm is called the superstar realm. Lifespan is time, and the environment is space. It has surpassed the limits of time and space." After completing the agreement with the Flying Cloud High Priest, he could finally leave. Yang Tian felt that the advancement this time didn't take long, but in reality, more than 30 days had passed. If he returned to the academy now, he could still make it in time. With the storage bracelet, there was nothing to pack. Taking advantage of the fact that there was still half a day before the formation plate opened, Yang Tian cooked a meal, barbecued meat, and took out a small amount of wine. After the human and dragon were full, the formation plate lit up with blue light. After putting away the barbecue rack and putting on the full set of Black Star armor, Yang Tian looked at the space in the meteorite with some nostalgia and walked toward the formation plate. The little blue dragon also jumped on Yang Tian's head. After stepping on the formation plate, a few seconds later, the blue light in front of him suddenly lit up. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon disappeared from the formation plate. The Flying Cloud High Priest had already used rune energy on the formation plate. After detecting that Yang Tian and the others had left, a part of the formation plate that was covered with runes started to spin rapidly. A few minutes later, a strong blue light lit up. Then, there was a loud boom. In the outside world, a meteorite with a diameter of more than 100 kilometers shattered into pieces. The Flying Cloud High Priest didn't lie to Yang Tian. This meteorite really did exist at the entrance of a space bubble. When this meteorite exploded, the space bubble also lost its stability and shattered. Apart from a small part of the meteorite fragments that escaped the bubble's range due to the explosion, most of the fragments were destroyed. Yang Tian, who had left, naturally didn't know that this had happened. After the teleportation was completed, Yang Tian's eyes were filled with a dazzling light. It turned out that he had been teleported to a high-temperature planet. This planet was very close to a star, and the sky was covered by the giant star. As soon as he came out of the formation plate, Yang Tian's armor system gave him a high-temperature warning. The temperature outside was more than 1,000 degrees, and the armor couldn't last long. The countdown before its destruction began. Yang Tian immediately used his mental power to cover his body. Only then did the armor system stop counting. It was clear that this was a trap set by the Flying Cloud High Priest. If Yang Tian didn't keep his promise and left before reaching the superstar state, he would have to face a dangerous environment. Even his armor couldn't protect him. "Xiao Long, let's go." Yang Tian shook his head helplessly and said to the little blue dragon. The little blue dragon immediately jumped down from Yang Tian's head and transformed into a giant dragon. Yang Tian sat on the little blue dragon's back. In less than a minute, the little blue dragon flew Yang Tian away from the planet with a harsh environment and into space. They flew quickly in the direction away from the star. Chapter 436. After more than 10 minutes, the little blue dragon was finally far away from the huge star, and the radiation of the star was not so strong. This was an unfamiliar star field. If it was not in the star map, it would be troublesome. Yang Tian also believed that the Flying Cloud High Priest would not do such a thing. After releasing the Black Dragon spaceship from the storage bracelet, Yang Tian immediately entered the spaceship's cockpit. After the little blue dragon turned back into a mini-dragon, it also entered the spaceship. Yang Tian let the spaceship's AI system check the distribution of the surrounding planet. The result made Yang Tian feel relieved. After the spaceship system compared the distribution of the surrounding planets with the star map, it obtained the location of this star field and also calculated the spaceship's current coordinate. This star field was extremely far away from Ketla planet. If it were to fly back by the spaceship, it would take at least a month or so. Of course, Yang Tian would not be so stupid. He immediately started the spaceship and flew towards the nearest habitable planet. After arriving at the habitable planet, he could use the formation plate on the habitable planet to teleport back to Ketla planet. During the flight, Yang Tian took off his helmet and went to the storage cabin of the spaceship. After closing the cabin door, Yang Tian took out the stone coffin containing the mysterious young man's body from the storage bracelet. This body was something that many people wanted. It was obviously very important. If he just took it back and handed it to the academy, it would not be worth it. At least he had to take a look. After opening the coffin lid, Yang Tian carefully observed it. Other than knowing that the cells that made up the body were very special, he did not see anything else. Although there was no life, it should be that this body did not have the consciousness of the previous owner, but the cells were still alive and emitted strong energy waves. At the same time, it also gave Yang Tian a strong sense of psychological pressure. Yang Tian now knew that at least for superstar cultivators, if the body lost the consciousness of the owner, the cells would immediately die. This was like the true unification of the soul and the body. This corpse, on the other hand, was like an ordinary human. Although it had lost its consciousness, its cells were still alive. Furthermore, its cells still contained a terrifying amount of energy. Perhaps that was the reason why Great Priest Feiyun wanted to use the corpse to break through his cultivation, but failed in the end. Yang Tian wasn't confident, so he didn't dare to try. However, it would be a good idea to extract the energy from this corpse. Thinking of this, Yang Tian shook his head. This corpse was a human corpse. If he were to absorb its energy, it would be too disgusting. However, it would be even better if he could unravel the secrets of the corpse's cells. Looking at the corpse, Yang Tian frowned and took out the red saber from his storage bracelet. Yang Tian used the tip of his knife to cut the neck of the corpse. The tip of the blade grazed the neck of the corpse, producing the sound of something hard rubbing against something. After putting away the knife, Yang Tian looked at the tip of the knife. There was not a single cell on it. The saber was actually unable to harm this body. Yang Tian was extremely shocked. How did Great Priest Feiyun obtain the young man's cells from his corpse back then? With that thought, Yang Tian recalled the talisman pen that Great Priest Feiyun gave him. The talisman pen looked ordinary, but its cutting ability was remarkable. The tip of the pen was also made of a unique material, so Yangming wondered if he could obtain some cells from this corpse. Thinking about the talisman pen, Yang Tian put down the red saber. Yang Tian's saber was also a treasure-level weapon, but its advantage wasn't its sharpness, but the space inside the blade. After taking out the talisman pen, Yang Tian held it with both hands and made a few cuts on the corpse's neck. A scratch appeared on the corpse right away, and the tip of the talisman pen was stained with some cells. I finally did it. Although there were only a few cells, the cells that were stained with the pen released energy waves that Yang Tian could clearly sense. Yang Tian would never let his body come into contact with the cells. He channeled a bit of his mental power and slowly approached the cells on the tip of the pen. At this moment, Yang Tian became nervous like a scientific researcher. He was looking forward to the changes that would happen when his mental power came into contact with the cells. At the same time, Yang Tian could also find out the structure of the cells through his mental power. Needless to say, this could only be done if his mental power entered the cells. Nonetheless, Yang Tian's mental power disappeared without a trace as soon as it came into contact with the cells. It was evident that the mental power was absorbed by the cells. Nothing happened to the cells that absorbed the mental power. Yang Tian was surprised and curious, so he channeled more mental power to try again. More than 10 minutes later, Yang Tian wiped his forehead. It was a habitual action, but there was no cold sweat on his forehead. During these 10 minutes, Yang Tian kept increasing his mental power. In the end, it was like a stone sinking into the sea, and all of his mental power disappeared. It was worth noting that Yang Tian used more than a third of the mental power that he could use. Hundreds of thousands of little blue dragons formed by mental power disappeared as soon as they came into contact with the cells. However, the cells did not change at all after absorbing so much energy. To Yang Tian, this was too unbelievable. If mental power did not work, what about force? Next, Yang Tian tried again with force. Force was extremely destructive to other people's body cells, and he did not know if it could destroy these cells. The result still surprised Yang Tian. This time, although the cells did not absorb the force, they sensed the force's destructive power and repelled it. After this attempt, Yang Tian did not plan to continue the experiment. However, he had to keep some of the cells. What if they were useful when the time came? Yang Tian used runes to extract some cells from the corpse again. He then took out a box that contained beast cores and scraped the cells into the stone box with the tip of his knife. After dozens of attempts, the cells that Yang Tian extracted were the size of a finger. He closed the box and made a special mark on it with runes before putting it into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian's instinct was that these cells would be useful in the future. After looking at the headless corpse in the stone coffin, Yang Tian closed the lid and put the stone coffin into his storage bracelet. Then, Yang Tian left the storage cabin and returned to the cockpit. Xiao Long, what kind of life form do you think that corpse is? High Priest Feiyun said that it's an outsider. Is there really another universe outside this one? After sitting down, Yang Tian mumbled. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon told Yang Tian that it did not know either. Chapter 437. In less than half a day, the spaceship arrived at its destination. It was a planet called Heia. The Black Dragon spaceship landed directly in a spaceport on Heia planet. After paying some star crystals, a man and a dragon immediately left the spaceport. Heia planet was also a prosperous planet. Yang Tian was not interested in staying on this planet and immediately went to the teleportation point with the little blue dragon. After more than 10 teleportations, Yang Tian finally returned to Ketla planet. After coming out of the teleportation point, he directly found a car and returned to Superstar Academy. Superstar Academy had been paying attention to Yang Tian, especially as the day of the temple's selection of divine generals in the academy was getting closer and closer. They also paid more and more attention to Yang Tian. In fact, Yang Tian had been discovered before he returned to Ketla planet. At this time, if he did not directly return to Ketla planet but went to another planet, the academy would probably send someone to invite him. As soon as he entered the school gate, a young and beautiful woman was waiting for Yang Tian. Furthermore, this beauty was wearing a white office lady outfit and white high heels. Yang Tian was familiar with this beauty. She was the assistant next to Dean Xingyi. After following the beautiful assistant into the car quickly passed through the academy and finally stopped in front of the academy's conference building. Then, Yang Tian was led to the 8-story conference building and entered a small conference hall. In this conference hall, there were already dozens of professors waiting for Yang Tian. Only 3 of them were known to Yang Tian. One was Professor Shenwu, the other was Dean Xingyi and Professor Fu Wei. Dozens of people sat in a circle, and in the middle of them, there was a large circular open space. Yang Tian's seat was set in the middle of this space. As soon as he came back, he was brought here as soon as he entered the academy gate. Yang Tian certainly knew why. With a smile on his face, Yang Tian walked to the center under the gazes of dozens of people. He sat down on a semicircular seat that looked like a virtual gaming cabin. Seeing Yang Tian sit down, Principal Xingyi first smiled and said, "Yang Tian, congratulations on safely returning to the academy." Yang Tian politely nodded towards Principal Yi. To be honest, sitting here, Yang Tian felt like he was a prisoner being interrogated. In fact, this was also a disguised form of interrogation. Just as Principal Xingyi's voice fell, the meeting room's door was pushed open. The ones who walked in were 3 black-armored men. The 3 of them were not wearing helmet. The one walking at the front was a middle-aged man with a square face and a head of long black hair. Behind the middle-aged man were 2 young men. They should be the middle-aged man's subordinate. There was an empty seat in the circle of tables. After glancing around, the middle-aged man walked directly to the empty seat, pulled out a chair and sat down. His 2 subordinates stood behind him. Looking at the attire of these 3 people, they were obviously not students of the Superstar Academy. Then, they must be people from the temple. From the aura emitted by this person, Yang Tian only felt that he was much stronger than himself. He did not know the other party's realm. After this person came, the meeting room was silent for a moment. After the professors withdrew their gazes from the middle-aged man who suddenly came, they gathered on Yang Tian. "Yang Tian, where are the other students who went with you?" At this time, a professor asked aloud. The professor's voice was a bit strict, and the expression on his face was also very serious. Seeing the professor's appearance, Yang Tian was very unhappy and said indifferently, "The other students have nothing to do with me. I don't know." When Yang Tian said this, he could not help but think of the cultivators who were still trapped on the Red Planet. He thought that many people would pay attention to his return this time. Yang Tian's answer made the professor very dissatisfied. When Yang Tian's voice fell, he could not help but snort coldly. However, the rules of the academy were like this. Even if Yang Tian killed all the other students in this experiential learning, the Superstar Academy could not hold him responsible. Most of the professors sitting here were in the Superstar realm. To be honest, Yang Tian was already qualified to sit on the same table as them. The reason for this current situation was also related to the force in Yang Tian's body. When Yang Tian did not use the force, it was as if he used a rune tool to hide his aura, making it difficult for people to see his cultivation realm. The professor snorted coldly, which made the little blue dragon unhappy and looked at the professor coldly. If they were not in the academy, with the little blue dragon's current temper, he would have opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of hot dragon flames at him. Dean Xing-yi smiled at this time and said, "You also know the purpose of us looking for you here. We won't say anything unnecessary. We don't care about your other matters. You can do as you see fit." Yang Tian nodded and said with a smile, "That's refreshing." After saying that, Yang Tian stood up, pushed the chair away, and first released the corpse of the Flying Cloud Great Priest from the storage bracelet. When the Flying Cloud Great Priest died, he maintained a cross-legged posture. When Yang Tian released the corpse was also in a cross-legged posture. The head of the corpse was lowered, and the withered long hair covered the face, making it impossible to see the face clearly. The Flying Cloud Great Priest was specifically asked for by the Academy. Yang Tian could not take away the storage bracelet on his wrist. After releasing the corpse of the Flying Cloud Great Priest, Yang Tian also took out the storage bracelet that he left behind when he was alive and put it on the wrist of the corpse. Actually, Yang Tian also knew that there were not many good things in this storage bracelet. When the corpse of the Flying Cloud Great Priest appeared, Dean Xing-yi stood up, pulled the chair away, and slowly walked in front of the Flying Cloud Great Priest. He squatted down and brushed away the long hair of the Flying Cloud Great Priest. Sigh. After retracting his hand, Dean Xing-yi sighed. Among the professors here, only Dean Xing-yi recognized the Flying Cloud Great Priest. Yang Tian immediately helped Dean Xing-yi up. Compared to the last time Yang Tian saw him, Dean Xing-yi's aura was even weaker. He sighed just now because he remembered that he didn't have long to live. This world was very exciting. Even an old man who had lived for many years didn't wish to die. This sigh also contained Dean Xing-yi's helplessness. At this time, everyone looked at Dean Xing-yi. After Dean Xing-yi walked back to his seat, he said indifferently, "This old man can confirm that this is the Flying Cloud Great Priest." As soon as his voice fell, the black-armored middle-aged man who was the last to arrive at this conference hall immediately stood up and came to the side of the Flying Cloud Great Priest's corpse. He knelt down on one knee in front of the Flying Cloud Great Priest and bowed his head. After standing up, this person took the Flying Cloud Great Priest's storage bracelet. With a wave of his hand, he stored the Flying Cloud Great Priest's corpse into the storage bracelet. Chapter 438. After the black-armored middle-aged man retrieved the Flying Cloud High Priest's corpse, he immediately returned to his seat. Yang Tian glanced at the surrounding professors and said with a smile, "Now, can I leave?" When Yang Tian said this, many professors looked at Yang Tian with their eyes wide open. The emotions in the professors' eyes were especially complicated at this time. There was disappointment, doubt, and helplessness. Yang Tian knew what these people wanted, but to take it out so easily was really not enough to vent his anger. Yang Tian had long been unhappy about being interrogated like this. He thought to himself that he had to find some trouble for these old fellows, even if it was just to make them feel bad psychologically. Yang Tian, is that all? When Yang Tian finished speaking and looked at these professors with cute eyes, a professor that Yang Tian didn't know asked, "Oh, I almost forgot." Yang Tian scratched his head and said, "There are still some things that I have to hand over to the academy." When Yang Tian said this, many professors' eyes lit up and looked at him with expectant eyes. In the end, Yang Tian released a large pile of corpses. A total of 34 withered corpses were all placed around Yang Tian, occupying the empty space around Yang Tian. In that bubble space, Yang Tian and Chu Yengyang had obtained a total of 65 such corpses. Just with these corpses, Yang Tian could obtain 5 million academic credits. In addition to bringing back the Flying Cloud High Priest, it was 5 million academic credits. Dean Xingyi was very good at observing people's expressions. He had long seen through Yang Tian's deliberate mischief. When he saw Yang Tian take out these corpses, he said indifferently, "According to the Academy's rules, you can obtain 4 million academic credits." After Dean Xingyi finished speaking, a professor stepped forward and took away the corpses that Yang Tian released. When these corpses were released by Yang Tian, the air in the conference hall became a little polluted, and there was an unpleasant smell. Many professors couldn't help but frown. "Okay, there's no more." After the corpses were taken away, Yang Tian shrugged and said, "Is there really no more?" Seeing Yang Tian's annoying look, the Xinwu professor couldn't help but ask. The Xinwu professor had a smile on his face, while Professor Fu Wei, who was sitting next to him, had a frosty expression. His hands on the table were clenched into fists. The Xinwu professor had spoken, and they couldn't make things difficult for the academy. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if they deliberately made things difficult for the academy during the divine general selection. These professors were usually calm and composed, but Yang Tian's provocation had caused them to be on the verge of exploding. Of course, this was because these professors were looking forward to it, so they were a little anxious. "It was not easy for me to obtain that item. The academy should reward me, right?" Yang Tian smiled and asked. When Yang Tian said this, many professors breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Yang Tian admitted it, it was fine. "What kind of reward do you want?" Professor Xingyi asked with a smile. After saying that, he immediately added, "As long as your request is not too unreasonable, the academy can satisfy you. This is what you deserve." "I want the superstar armor." Yang Tian's mouth curled up and he said lightly. The Superstar Academy had a set of blue armor that required 100 million credits to exchange. The runes on it were personally designed by Great Priest Taiyu. When he first saw this set of armor, Yang Tian coveted it. When the professors heard this, most of them frowned. Many years had passed, and no student had been able to successfully exchange for this set of armor in the Superstar Academy. Because after reaching the Superstar realm, it was considered graduation. Once a student graduated, their credits in the academy would be reset to 0, and they would no longer be able to exchange for things in the academy. And in the Star Realm, no one could obtain 100 million credit. This was also related to the academy's strict assessment system. Students with talent for cultivation were able to graduate and leave the academy in a very short period of time. As for the mediocre students, most of them were eliminated. Even if they were not eliminated, with their mediocre abilities, how could they be expected to obtain a huge amount of credits? If the credits were reduced by half, it was estimated that this set of top-grade armor would have been exchanged for long ago. Yang Tian's condition was equivalent to the academy rewarding him with 100 million credit. Even Dean Xingyi could not decide on this condition, because the academy was not his. The dean was just a job assigned to him by the Superstar Divinity Temple. Seeing the professor's hesitation, Yang Tian said with a smile, "I risked my life to bring this back. You don't know how powerful this corpse is. The energy contained in each of its cells exceeds the power of a star realm expert. Such a special life form has a lot of research value. Don't you want to know what kind of life form an expert of a higher realm is? Although the professors present had not cultivated to the great star divinity realm, it did not hinder their longing for a higher realm, because this allowed them to see the endless path of cultivation. On the path of cultivation, the scary thing was not that there was no end, but that they could see the end. What do you think? After Yang Tian finished speaking, Dean Xingyi swept his gaze over everyone and asked, if these professors agreed to reward Yang Tian with 100 million credits, then this matter would be easy to handle. If they did not agree, Dean Xingyi knew that Yang Tian would still hand over the corpse in the end, but if this matter was spread out, it would chill the hearts of some students. All the professors present understood this point, and most of them nodded in agreement after Dean Xingyi finished speaking. Seeing everyone's attitude, Dean Xingyi said to Yang Tian with a smile, "Good. The Academy has agreed to your request and will immediately reward you with 100 million credit. Go exchange for it yourself." Yang Tian chuckled and immediately released the sarcophagus from his storage bracelet. This sarcophagus had already been opened by Yang Tian twice. The moment it was released, the sarcophagus could not contain the powerful aura inside, and it immediately emitted out. Feeling the aura inside the sarcophagus, the professors immediately stood up and gathered around. A professor pushed open the sarcophagus, and the headless corpse inside appeared in front of everyone's eyes. When the professors gathered around, Yang Tian kept retreating. He knew that there was nothing for him to do now. As for the credits, he believed that Dean Xingyi would definitely not go back on his word. After withdrawing from the crowd, Yang Tian turned around and walked out of the conference hall. Leaving immediately, Yang Tian was also afraid that those professors would take the opportunity to chase after him and not let him go, asking him if he had hidden personal goods, or hand over the storage bracelets and the like from those corpses. These, Yang Tian naturally could not bear to take them out. After leaving the conference hall, Yang Tian quickly walked forward and directly returned to the advanced student area. Just as he walked to the entrance of Villa 099, he saw Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying already sitting in front of the door, as if they had been waiting for him for a long time. Seeing the two beauties, Yang Tian faintly smiled. Chapter 439. What surprised Yang Tian was that the two women were wearing similar clothes. Chu Yen Guing was wearing a white shirt, a black suit and a black short skirt. As for Soli, she was wearing the same clothes as Chu Yen Guing, but the color was different. In addition to their office lady outfits, the two women were also carrying a small bag. Soli's bag was red, and Chu Yen Guiying's bag was blue. It seemed that the women's clothes and bags produced by 7 Light Rain and 7 Colors companies were very popular. Even female cultivators accepted them. Yang Tian opened the door and brought the two women to the living room on the second floor. He asked Belle to bring 2 drinks. Then, Yang Tian and the little blue dragon went into the bathroom and took a bath. After being out for so long, Yang Tian hadn't taken a comfortable bath, and there was a strange smell on his body. Even if the Black Star armor had an automatic cleaning function, the smell on his body couldn't be removed. After 20 minutes, Yang Tian came to the living room in a white t-shirt and a pair of black pants and sat in front of the two women. Belle immediately ordered the housekeeping robot to bring Yang Tian a glass of juice. Yang Tian, what happened after we left? Did High Priest Fei Yun give you all the star crystals and beast cores? Soli asked curiously as she held the glass and looked into Yang Tian's eyes. When Yang Tian came back this time, the two women found that Yang Tian had changed a lot. Yang Tian, who had reforged his body, had slightly changed the shape of his face, making it more aesthetically pleasing. Also, after reaching a higher realm, the aura that Yang Tian emitted had also changed. The overall feeling that he gave off was that he had changed a lot. Yang Tian didn't know what would happen when he saw Qin Fei. Would Qin Fei still recognize him then? After you left, High Priest Fei Yun showed me many runes and told me to memorize them. Finally, I have to crack the rune mechanism on those stellar crystals. Yang Tian began to narrate what had happened after the two women had left. In the process of explaining, Yang Tian spoke very slowly, fearing that he would accidentally reveal the existence of the strange program. Although Soli, Chu Yen, and Gu Ying were completely trustworthy, Yang Tian didn't want them to know about the strange program. He had promised the strange program that he wouldn't let anyone else know about this. Of course, the smart little blue dragon had always been by Yang Tian's side and knew about this. So many. When the two women heard Yang Tian say the number of beast cores, they were very surprised. What about you two? Yang Tian looked at the two women's surprised expressions and asked with a smile. Soli said, I obtained more than 90 million stellar crystals. Among the 10 beast cores I randomly chose, 6 were stellar warrior level beast cores. As for the other 4, 2 were stellar warrior level, 1 was stellar domain lord level, and 1 was super stellar warrior level. You're quite lucky, Yang Tian said with a smile. I obtained more than 1,000 boxes, but only 19 superstellar warrior level beast cores. After saying that, Yang Tian shook his head and asked Chu Yen Guing, What about you? Chu Yen Guing smiled and said, 4 stellar warrior level beast cores, 1 stellar warrior level, 2 stellar lord level, 1 stellar domain lord level, and 2 superstellar warrior level. Chu Yen Guiying's luck was even better than Soli's. Yang Tian, this time, the Superstar Divinity Temple will select 5 divine generals. You will definitely sign up for it, right? Soli asked again. Yang Tian nodded. Soli said, Then the competition for you is still quite big. In the past, students who have graduated from the academy and have not been assigned a job are all qualified to participate in such an assessment. Yang Tian heard this and could not help but frown. Didn't you say that only advanced students will participate? Soli smiled and said, Naturally, superstellar students are also advanced students. It's just that most of them have left the academy. Many of them wanted to work in the temple and were not satisfied with the job assigned by the temple, so they did not complete the graduation procedures in the academy. However, there is also a time limit. If the students do not complete the procedures within 100 years, they will be considered to have automatically graduated. There was such a thing. Yang Tian finally understood. It turned out that the Superstar Academy was also regarded as an organization that included job assignment. Chu Yen Guing smiled and said, The registration has already started. The academy system has the number of people who have signed up. Not only are the names listed, but also their current realm. You can take a look. Yang Tian was very glad at this time. He thanked the Flying Cloud High Priest from the bottom of his heart. If not for this old man letting him advance to the superstar realm before leaving. In that case, Yang Tian would definitely think that raising his realm to the stellar domain lord level should be enough. Moreover, if he returned to the academy, he would not be able to calm down and cultivate. Perhaps such an accident would not happen during the cultivation process, and it would be impossible for him to have the original realm in his body. It must be known that the accident that happened during the advancement of one's realm was caused by the interaction of many factors. Yang Tian immediately let Bell open the academy system and listed the registration for the Superstar Divinity Temple's selection of divine generals. Yang Tian took a look. There were not many people, about 130 or so. Most of them were advanced students from the Stellar Lord realm to the Stellar Domain Lord realm. The rest were all Superstar Warrior realm students. These superstar-level students were probably students who hadn't graduated yet. Yang Tian also found Soli's name on it. Soli was the student with the lowest realm in the registration. She was now at the stellar warlord realm. In just a few months, Soli had advanced another realm. Although she was not as abnormal as Yang Tian, her cultivation speed was very fast. Seeing Yang Tian's gaze lingering on her name for a moment, Soli smiled and said, "Actually, us female students have an advantage in this aspect. The temple's selection of divine generals is not solely based on combat power. There are other aspects to consider. Yang Tian, why don't we make a bet?" With that, Soli smiled and looked at Yang Tian. "Say it." Yang Tian said straightforwardly. "If I become one of the 5 divine generals, let me follow you when you assign duties." Soli said after a moment of hesitation. "Okay." Yang Tian smiled and nodded. Chu Yen Guang frowned imperceptibly and said, "Soli, what if you lose?" Soli smiled and said, "If I don't become one of the 5 divine generals, then I will leave the academy and be Yang Tian's housekeeper." After Soli said that, Yang Tian could not help but laugh. If Soli and Chu Yen Guang had come here alone, they would not have stayed for long. But it was 2 women together. Although the 2 of them had some thoughts that were hard to say, they stayed at Yang Tian's place for most of the day. They ate Yang Tian's barbecue and drank the rest of Yang Tian's wine before leaving. Yang Tian was not stupid and naturally knew what the 2 women were thinking. However, since they did not say it out loud, he could not refuse. But for a normal man, this feeling was quite good. After the 2 women left, Yang Tian saw a pile of storage tools on the table in the living room and could not help but grin happily. These were brought back by Soli and Chu Yen Guang. If he cracked these storage bracelets, he might get more wealth than what he got from the Flying Cloud High Priest. Chapter 440. After the 2 girls left, Yang Tian let Belle open the academy system again and looked at the account point. Dean Xing Yi was indeed a man of his word. Yang Tian's account already had more than 103 million credit. Just as he opened the account, a notification popped up, indicating that the deduction of 1 million credits was successful. This was the credits owed from the last time Professor Shen Wu helped Yang Tian exchange for the Star Imperial Virtual World battleship. This time it was finally paid off. Yang Tian had already advanced to the superstar realm. After the certification, he should be considered to have graduated, and the credits he obtained would be reset to 0. However, to sign up for the Superstar Divinity Temple's recruitment examination, one must report their true realm. If they falsified, they would be disqualified during the examination. Therefore, before Yang Tian signed up, he had to first exchange all the credits for physical objects, then go for the certification and sign up for the examination. Yang Tian had long wanted to get the blue armor that could only be exchanged for with 100 million credit. After checking the credits, he immediately let Belle switch the academy system to the exchange page. After finding the blue armor, Yang Tian immediately used 100 million credits to exchange for the blue armor. After the exchange, the system issued a notification that 100 million credits were successfully deducted, and the physical object would be sent to him soon. 100 million credits were spent, and there were still more than 4 million credits left. These credits could not be wasted, and had to be exchanged for some good things. Yang Tian thought for a while, and let Belle search for physical objects related to runes in the exchange section. If there were rare books that recorded runes or other things that could be used to supplement the strange program's rune database, that would be great. This was also what Yang Tian could think of, and what he wanted to exchange for the most. In the Superstar Academy, the things that students exchanged the most were some combat skills and weapons, as well as all kinds of armors and beast cores, because these were all necessities for the students in the process of cultivation. Yang Tian thought about the combat skills in the academy for a while, and felt that he could not use them at all. After learning martial arts from Zhu Wei, Coupled with the terrifying destructive power of his origin power, Yang Tian's combat strength was more or less at its peak. The intelligence of the people on Earth was not inferior to the cultivators in the universe. Even the professors in the academy were shocked by the martial arts created by their ancestors. Yang Tian didn't need combat skills, and neither did he need weapons. Ever since Yang Tian became a warrior, he had been using a saber. He was the most proficient in using a saber. In addition, this saber named 15 was not bad. At least, Yang Tian had not found a better saber than 15. Therefore, he did not need a weapon. As for beast cores, the number of beast cores in Yang Tian's storage bracelet was more than enough for him. Other than armors, weapons, and battle techniques, which were the items that the students exchanged for the most during their cultivation, Yang Tian was not interested in anything else. In the school system, there were many things that could be exchanged. After searching for a few minutes, Bell finally had a result. "Master, I've found 12 items that can be exchanged." After the search was completed, Bell prompted, and the items that could be exchanged appeared in front of Yang Tian's eyes. At this time, the little blue dragon that had been lying on Yang Tian's shoulder suddenly opened its eyes and looked at the displayed items with wide eyes. The little blue dragon's intuition was very sensitive. As long as it was related to something, even if it was asleep, it would immediately wake up. Seeing the items listed by Bell, not only did the little blue dragon's eyes widen, even Yang Tian's eyes were wide open. Because among the 12 items displayed, one of them was a stone tablet that was engraved with runes. The key was not the runes, but the base of the runes. It was actually a dragon. This made Yang Tian and the little blue dragon realize that these runes might be related to the dragon clan. Or the cultivator who engraved the runes on this tablet had also seen a dragon and felt that dragons were very beautiful, so he used the dragon pattern as a decoration on the base of the runes. Yang Tian guessed that the first possibility was more likely. Because he understood rune cultivators, these people's concept of time was very strong, so they would not make the base of the runes just to look beautiful. Yang Tian was stunned for a moment, then looked at the exchange price of this tablet. It was actually 2 million school credits. The price seemed to be a little high. In this exchange program, there was also the fact that this tablet had been online for more than 1,000 years. In other words, in the exchange program, this tablet had been displayed for more than 1,000 years, and no one had exchanged it. Bell exchange. Yang Tian did not hesitate, and immediately said to the auxiliary tool Bell, "Yes, master." Bell responded, and immediately used 2 million school credits to exchange for this tablet. After the exchange, the academy system also popped up a notification, saying that the exchange was successful, and it would be immediately sent over. As for the other 12 items related to runes, most of them were rune books, and some were material fragments. The prices of these items were not high, adding up, they could be exchanged for less than 100,000 school credit. Yang Tian immediately let Bell exchange for them. Now Yang Tian still had more than 2 million school credits left. When he exited the exchange page of rune items, his account suddenly had 3,100,000 school credit. His total school credits suddenly became more than 5 million school credit. Yang Tian knew that Chu Yen Guing must have taken out the dried corpses from her storage bracelet to exchange for school credit. Next, what should he exchange for? He still had more than 5 million school credits, and he could not waste them. After thinking for a while, Yang Tian decided to use them to exchange for Planet Warrior to Planet Domain Lord Beast cores, spending a total of over 5 million academic credit. Yang Tian prepared these beast cores for Qi Guanghao. Although Qi Guanghao relied on his sister, Qi Guangyu, and was already very rich, it was not that easy to buy the beast cores he needed. Thinking about Qi Guanghao, Yang Tian asked Bell to check on the situation of the lower student area's assessment. Qi Guanghao did not disappoint Yang Tian. This guy had already advanced to Planet King level, and his improvement was very fast. Naturally, he passed the Academy's assessment. Seeing that Qi Guang Hao was not eliminated, Yang Tian smiled with relief. It seemed that the beast cores he exchanged for Qi Guang Hao would be of use soon. After spending all his school credits, Yang Tian asked Bell to send the requirements for the advancement assessment to the Academy. Next, he had to pass the advancement assessment, and then he had to register for the Divine General Assessment. Before confirming the student's realm, Yang Tian could only fill in the Star Warrior realm in the Academy's system. Only after passing the realm assessment could he fill in the Super Star Warrior realm. Otherwise, Yang Tian would have signed up right now. After doing all this, Bell notified Yang Tian that the item he exchanged for had been delivered. The one who delivered the item was a housework robot. Bell opened the door, and after a simple exchange, the armor that was exchanged for 100 million school credits finally appeared in front of Yang Tian. Chapter 441. As soon as the blue armor arrived, the other items that Yang Tian had exchanged for arrived as well. The items that were delivered were very bulky, so Yang Tian had to open the door personally to receive them. It was a stone tablet that was about 5 meters long, 2 meters wide, and about a foot thick. The stone tablet was green in color, and the material was fine. It had dragon patterns as a background, and there were tens of thousands of tiny runes engraved on it. Yang Tian only glanced at it before putting it into his storage bracelet. Then, he collected the other rune books, some material fragments with runes engraved on them, and beast cores. Squeak, squeak, squeak. As soon as the door was closed, the little blue dragon began to squeak. This guy was also very interested in this stone tablet because there were dragon patterns on it. On the first floor, Yang Tian released the stone tablet and let it lie flat on the ground. Previously, Yang Tian had only glanced at it briefly, so he did not notice anything special about the stone tablet. Now that he took a closer look, he was very surprised. This was because the lines that formed the dragon patterns among the tens of thousands of runes were actually the lines that connected the runes and transmitted energy. Yang Tian realized that the rune cultivator who designed this stone tablet must be a rune expert. Unfortunately, this stone tablet was incomplete. There were obvious traces of polishing at the edge of the stone tablet, and some of the runes had been rubbed off in half. What a waste of a heavenly treasure! Yang Tian looked at the incomplete runes and sighed in his heart as he shook his head. Although Yang Tian did not know much about runes and relied entirely on the strange program, after experiencing so many things, he also valued and loved runes very much. The little blue dragon did not understand runes either. When Yang Tian released the stone tablet, it jumped onto the stone tablet and looked at the runes curiously. In order to see the dragon patterns, one had to be a certain distance away from the stone tablet. After the little blue dragon looked at it from above, it flew into the air and lowered its head to look. What are these runes? Yang Tian asked the strange program in his mind. The strange program did not immediately answer Yang Tian. Instead, it calculated for a moment before saying to Yang Tian, "This is a type of shape-shifting rune." Mimic runes? That's right. Under the stimulation of energy, the inscriptions can be revealed. This kind of rune is like a slide. It can project images of people, exotic beasts, and other things, forming a scene and conveying the information the designer wants to express. The strange program was described in a language that Yang Tian could easily understand. Although the explanation of the strange program was very simple, Yang Tian also understood that the simulation might not be purely visual. It might also contain offensive or defensive energy, or even energy that could affect the human mind. If it was just a simple shape-shifting rune, it wouldn't be worth that much, right? Yang Tian felt that it was a bit of a loss for him to use 2 million credits to exchange for this tablet. Only one side of the tablet had runes, but the other side did not. After flipping through it, Yang Tian put the tablet down and asked the strange program, "Can you restore this tablet?" Yang Tian's intention was to restore the tablet's function and allow it to project an image. The strange program calculated for a moment before saying to Yang Tian, "Yes, the pattern on it is completely preserved. As long as you fill in some missing runes, it will be able to appear. However, it will take some time to calculate. At the same time, you will need to prepare a piece of the same material. The same material will be difficult to find. Can't you shrink it a little? We can engrave it on the back," Yang Tian said. However, the strange program replied, "The arrangement of the runes on the tablet has been precisely calculated. If the size of the tablet is changed, the runes will need to be rewritten. If these runes are complete, it can be done." "Alright. Let's see if we can buy such a stone material," Yang Tian said helplessly. Rune design was a very complicated process. There were many factors to consider, especially the material used to engrave it, as well as the surrounding environment. All of these had to be taken into consideration. If there were any big changes, the runes would need to be changed. Ding dong! Yang Tian called out. Whoosh, the auxiliary tool, ding dong, immediately flew over. "Master, what are your orders?" Ding dong asked. Yang Tian looked at the tablet in front of him and said, "Analyze its material and find out where it came from. If you can find out where it is and can buy it, order one piece. Deduct the money from my account." "Yes, master," Ding dong replied. A red beam of light shot out from it and scanned the tablet. The data of the tablet's material was quickly calculated by Ding dong, and it began to search on the internet. After a moment, Ding dong replied, "Master, I have found it. The source of this stone material is from 9 Barbarian Star Field." 9 Barbarian Star Field. Yang Tian muttered a few times and asked, "Can I order this stone material?" Ding dong said, 100 years ago, it might have been possible. The stone material produced in 9 Barbarian Star Field is widely used by rune cultivators. But now, 9 Barbarian Star Field has been cut off from the outside world, so it is impossible to order it. Cut off from the outside world meant that the entire star field was cut off from the universe's network. At the same time, it also meant that the superstar divine temple had lost control. Yang Tian would not give up on any information related to the little blue dragon. He said to Ding dong, "Check on the information about 9 Barbarian Star Field." Ding dong responded and immediately began to search for information for Yang Tian. After a few minutes, the information about 9 Barbarian Star Field was found by Ding dong. Ding dong controlled the window to draw the curtains, and the light in the room dimmed. She then turned on the projection for Yang Tian. The projection showed the information about 9 Barbarian Star Field. First, it showed the star map of 9 Barbarian Star Field. 9 Barbarian Star Field had more than 100 stars, more than 20 habitable planets, and countless other planets rich in resources. This could be considered a relatively large star field. In the universe where communication was so advanced, no news could be hidden. The information about 9 Barbarian Star Field stated that 9 Barbarian Star Field had been brutally ruled by the Superstar Divine Temple for thousands of years. In order to obtain the resources in 9 Barbarian Star Field, the Superstar Divine Temple's divine generals had reduced the native population of the entire star field by at least a third. Where there was oppression, there would be resistance. This sentence was also applicable to the entire universe. In the past thousands of years, the divine generals sent by the superstar divine generals to 9 Barbarian Star Field had died. The dozens of divine generals from the superstar divine temple, who served in 9 Barbarian Star Field and retired in the end, were all extremely wealthy. 2 of them had even successfully advanced to the level of a great Star Lord and became priests of the Superstar Divine Temple. Yang Tian was curious about what resources 9 Barbarian Star Field was rich in. The conflicts between the various countries and forces in the universe were mostly caused by resources. Outsiders wanted to plunder, while the native forces wanted to protect, and there was also competition between several forces. Finally, he checked and found out that it was actually something called a refined fruit. Yang Tian was also curious about this refined fruit, and asked Bell to check more information about it. He was surprised to find that this fruit was similar to beast cores. It was an item that could provide a large amount of energy to cultivators. Its function was similar to that of a beast core. The difference was that the energy contained in the refined fruit was not as abundant as that of a beast core. However, it could be easily absorbed by the cells of a cultivator. Consuming this refined fruit for a long time could increase the capacity of a cultivator's cells. It was worth mentioning that the transparent shell outside the beast core was made of a colloidal substance found in the skin of the refined fruit. Yang Tian thought that he was already very rich and had seen a lot, but he had never heard of something like a refined fruit. He had spent so much time with Soli, but she had never mentioned it. After looking at the information about the refined fruit, Yang Tian finally understood the reason. It turned out that the production of this item in the entire 9 Barbarian star field was very small. If it was calculated using the time of the Ketla star, it would be about a year's production. If it was calculated using the units of measurement on Earth, it would be about a few 100,000 caddies. The universe was very big and there were countless powerhouses. There were also many people who used money. Once these items appeared, those who obtained them were all the top powerhouses in the universe and those with wealth and power. In other words, this refined fruit was not a consumer product but a top luxury item. Furthermore, the superstar divinity temple deliberately controlled it, so it did not become popular. Yang Tian had not been out of Earth for long, so he did not come into contact with many things. Naturally, he did not know about the refined fruit. Other than the refined fruit, Yang Tian believed that as his range of activities increased and he came into contact with more and more cultivators, many novel things would appear in front of him. Other than the refined fruit, the 9 Barbarian star field was also rich in stone materials for engraving runes. Just like the stone tablet that Yang Tian had exchanged 2 million credits for, its material was fine and could withstand the energy impact of runes. It had anti-corrosion properties, and many people used it to build magnificent palaces. Other than the refined fruit and stone materials, the 9 Barbarian star field also produced many precious items. Perhaps it was because of this that the native cultivators of the 9 Barbarian star field had an irreconcilable conflict with the superstar divinity temple. If I have time, I can make a trip there, Yang Tian thought to himself after he finished reading the information about the 9 Barbarian star field and asked Bell to turn it off. Surviving in this vast and boundless world, it was too boring to just cultivate and raise one's realm. There were some mysterious places that he should take a look at. After putting away the stone tablet, Yang Tian returned to the living room on the second floor. He took out the other 12 books that recorded runes and some material fragments and began to flip through them. Yang Tian could not understand the runes on the books, but the strange program did. When Yang Tian flipped through the books, the strange program memorized all the runes through Yang Tian's vision. As Yang Tian was flipping through a rune book in boredom, Bell suddenly reminded Yang Tian, "Master, Professor Shenwu is outside the door." Yang Tian guessed the reason for Professor Shenwu's visit. It was probably because he had finished drinking. At the same time, it could also be about the test. The last time Yang Tian advanced, it was Professor Shenwu who tested him. Yang Tian immediately went downstairs and opened the door. Professor Shenwu was wearing a red robe. When he opened the door and saw Yang Tian, a bright smile appeared on his face. Chapter 442. Seeing the smile on the professor's face, Yang Tian knew that he was out of wine. "Professor Shenwu, please come in," Yang Tian said with a smile. Then, he gestured for the professor to enter. The professor waved his hand. "I won't be going in. Let's finish the test first." As expected, it had something to do with the advancement test. Yang Tian nodded. "Follow me." The professor turned around and walked towards the back of the school. As he walked, the professor sped up. Suddenly, as if he had teleported, he disappeared without a trace. Yang Tian smiled and immediately followed. After a few seconds, Yang Tian caught up with the professor. The two of them were very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled a few hundred meters. Their speed had far surpassed the speed of sound. At such a fast speed, ordinary people would not be able to catch sight of them. At such a fast speed, they would be affected by air resistance. But as the two of them moved forward, they did not make any sound of air friction. Moreover, when the two of them stepped on the ground, they did not make any loud noises. It was as if they were ordinary people running. This did not seem to conform to the laws of physics. In fact, when the two of them were moving forward, their bodies were covered with some kind of energy shield, which dissipated the force of their collision with the air. For a superstar realm cultivator, this kind of collision with the air was really insignificant. As for when they were moving forward, the friction from the ground was actually very small. It was about the same as when ordinary people ran. The process sounded complicated, but in fact, it was to transfer the external force to their own energy consumption. As they moved forward, the professor looked back from time to time. When he saw that Yang Tian was still following behind, he immediately increased his speed. As for Yang Tian, when he saw that the professor had increased the distance between them, he also increased his speed. He always maintained a distance of more than 10 meters from the professor. Soon, the professor brought Yang Tian out of the school. They moved forward between the short mountains behind the school. Both of their figures flashed as if they had teleported. From the top of one hill, they appeared on the top of another. Professor Shenwu's cultivation level was clearly much higher than Yang Tian's. His speed became faster and faster. In the end, Yang Tian couldn't catch up. When he saw someone, he finally stopped. The person that Yang Tian saw was sitting cross-legged on top of a short hill. Beside him was a black, triangular short sword. This person was Primordial Stone Star, whom Yang Tian had not seen for a long time. After more than half a year, the Primordial Stone Star had ascended from the Stellar Domain Lord level to the Superstar level. Yang Tian stopped at a short hill that was only a few dozen meters away from the Primordial Stone Star. When Yang Tian stopped, Primordial Stone Star pulled out the short sword beside him and stood up from the ground. It was clear that the Shenwu professor had purposely brought Yang Tian here. "Yang Tian, it's been a long time. Now you can have a fair fight with me." Primordial Stone Star looked at Yang Tian and said with a smile. Like Yang Tian, Primordial Stone Star wasn't wearing armor. He was wearing a tight-fitting black leather shirt and pant. He couldn't hide. Yang Tian had promised Primordial Stone Star back then. Of course, he wouldn't avoid a fight. Thus, he nodded at Primordial Stone Star. At that moment, the Shenwu professor's figure suddenly appeared on top of another small hill. "Yang Tian, defeat him and you'll pass the test," the Shenwu professor said to Yang Tian with a smile after appearing. Just as Yang Tian had guessed, the Shenwu professor was going to use this method to test him. Squeak! At that moment, a green shadow flashed. The little blue dragon appeared on Yang Tian's shoulder and cried out excitedly. To the little blue dragon, a fight between powerhouses was the most interesting thing to watch. When they went out, it wasn't on Yang Tian's shoulder. Now it finally caught up. In a fair fight like this, the little blue dragon naturally wouldn't participate. When Yang Tian took out the red saber from his storage bracelet, it flashed to the side and hovered in the air. Yang Tian and Primordial Stone Star were both straightforward people. They didn't want to waste time talking. After Yang Tian took out his saber, he rushed toward Primordial Stone Star. At the same time, Primordial Stone Star moved as well. Both of their figures flashed and met in the air between two small hills. Bang! There was a loud noise. Yang Tian and Primordial Stone Star's figures quickly bounced away. Both of them didn't land and rushed toward each other again. This was Yang Tian's first battle after reaching the superstar realm. To Yang Tian, if he had to describe what he was feeling at that moment, there was only one word to describe it: awesome. Yang Tian was incomparably confident due to his powerful strength and precise control over his power. When he clashed with Primordial Stone Star, Yang Tian didn't use his force. He only used the power of the Dragon Ball. The Dragon Ball in Yang Tian's body existed in a very unique way. It turned into stars. As long as Yang Tian wanted to use the Dragon Ball's power, it would provide it continuously. Yang Tian reached the Superstar realm and directly consumed a Superstar Warlord-level Beast Core before he succeeded. The Force world in his body was also several times wider than the energy world in the body of an ordinary cultivator. Naturally, the power he possessed was also several times that of an ordinary person. The two of them clashed head-on and bounced off each other. It looked like they were evenly matched, but in reality Yang Tian had the upper hand. That was because Yang Tian's power was stronger. When the two of them flipped in the air and rushed toward each other again, in Yang Tian's eyes, a black thread suddenly appeared and enveloped him. Primordial Stone Star couldn't help but use a powerful move. He didn't want to clash head-on with Yang Tian anymore. The previous attack made him understand that there was a big gap between his power and Yang Tian's. To others, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched, but the two of them understood the gap between themselves and their opponent. These black threads were emitted from Primordial Stone's blade. They looked like strands of hair blown by the wind. They were curved and looked very soft. They didn't seem to have any destructive power, but in fact they had terrifying cutting power. In addition to the terrifying cutting power, it also covered a very wide area. If Yang Tian didn't quickly retreat, it seemed like he wouldn't be able to dodge it. Looking at the countless black threads, Yang Tian raised his blade and swung it. A ray of light appeared on Yang Tian's blade. The red ray of light wasn't the wind blade Yang Tian often used. It looked like a ray of light. In fact, it was made up of countless sharp rays of light. It was a move that Yang Tian could only use after his mind power had improved. It must be said that this was an improvised move by Yang Tian. Under the illumination of the red light, the all-encompassing black threads that were heading towards Yang Tian disappeared in an instant, as though darkness had encountered light. Even in the eyes of Professor Shenwu, Yang Tian's blade was emitting a red light. It was a light that enveloped Primordial Stone Star. However, in Primordial Stone Star's eyes, there were countless fine red rays piercing toward him at high speed. These rays of light were thinner than the black threads he emitted. Each red ray was very bright, and when gathered together, it was like an indistinguishable ray of light. The red ray of light was actually formed by the force and Yang Tian's mind power. It had extremely strong destructive power. After dissolving the black threads emitted from Primordial Stone Star's blade, it enveloped Primordial Stone Star. Primordial Stone Star had been through hundreds of battles and quickly retreated in the face of the red rays. The red rays looked like balls of light, but they didn't have the speed of light. While retreating quickly, Primordial Stone Star waved its triangular blade in the air and formed a black circle. It cancelled out Yang Tian's red rays. Yang Tian did not expect his sudden inspiration to damage the Primordial Stone Star. At that moment, he did not charge towards the Primordial Stone Star. Instead, he quickly retreated. His figure flashed and landed on the short mountain peak he had just stepped on. Primordial Stone Star also returned to its original position. It hadn't even been 10 seconds since the two of them started fighting. The higher the cultivation level, the faster the speed of the battle and the shorter the time it took to determine the winner. The two of them were dozens of meters apart as they silently looked at each other. It looked like they were accumulating power and waiting for the next exchange. However, in reality, neither of them had a sharp aura. Yang Tian, you've won, Primordial Stone Star suddenly said after a moment of silence in the breeze. Primordial Stone Star meant that he didn't want to fight anymore. He already understood that he would definitely lose if they continued to fight. What was the value of his life if he gave up his life for a family member who had nothing to do with him? Primordial Stone Star didn't have any deep grudges with Yang Tian. All right. Yang Tian also didn't want to fight to the death with Primordial Stone Star, so he nodded with a smile. Yang Tian thought Primordial Stone Star was a good person. It would be very unpleasant if they had to fight to the death. Yang Tian, Primordial Stone Star called out as soon as Yang Tian said that. Please speak. Yang Tian said. Primordial Stone Star said, I've already withdrawn the Taichu clan's bounty on you. The Taichu clan won't cause you any trouble in the future. Thank you. Yang Tian frowned and said faintly when he heard that. Primordial Stone Star knew that Yang Tian was feeling uncomfortable and said with a smile, You're now a supergrade powerhouse. The clan won't waste a lot of resources to make things difficult for you because of an unimportant person. Whether you want to cause trouble for the Taichu clan in the future is your business. Goodbye. Primordial Stone Star turned and left after saying that. The battle did not last long, but for Yang Tian, it had solved a troublesome problem. How do you feel? Professor Shenwu suddenly appeared in front of Yang Tian and asked with a smile. Yang Tian smiled and said, I feel great. Professor Shenwu said, You've passed the assessment this time, but you'll have to thank me. Professor Shenwu raised his hand as he said that. Yang Tian knew what Professor Shenwu wanted but said helplessly, I don't have it now. You'll have to wait a few days. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.